total middle child thing to say. All right.
Mom said not the cause.
Corns, the booking guys entered the room. He is shirtless tonight, apparently.
Oh.
He may be pantsless, too. You never know. There he is. There's Nick Madrid. Actually, it's Madrid, like Madrid, Spain. He's not Madrid, New Mexico. He is Madrid, Spain. There we go. Nick Madrid. All right, let's send out that final tweet. Let's get ready for some showtime. Super Chat is open, everyone. And don't forget to give us a thumbs up and a like. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. 5 seconds. We're going hot right now. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live and Revolution Radio. If you want to take a listen to our archives, they are free for you at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirt's SOR Newswire. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. Spooky and scary stories is what our next guest tonight eats for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and sometimes a little midnight snack. As we welcome back one of our most popular guests, Varla Ventura, for some Halloween monsters. Varla is one of the best authors in the world when it comes to everything witchy and freaky. It's her love of the macabre that allows Varla to entertain us with her vested interest in everything paranormal. Her website, varlaventura.net. Then at the bottom of hour number 3, I will bring you the SOR Newswire, brought to you by Paranoia Magazine. Varla Ventura, you are lovely, you are talented, and you are going to get a little spooky with us tonight. I am so looking forward to you being here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for believing in me and my powers to hopefully terrify at least someone out there.
Well, we do our best. We do our best around here. And you know, we're not going to lie. We have a little bit of a cryptid crush on you around here, our listeners, the host himself. So you're in good hands. You're in very good hands.
So I can really can't get too dark, right?
No, we're getting dark tonight. We are getting...
There's no such thing as too dark.
No. You're going to take us down roads that we have never traveled before. This is what I love about you.
Well, I think on that note, we could kick things off with a little premature burial.
Let's do this. Why not? Screw the introduction of who you are, what you're all about. Let's just get to premature burials right off the bat.
I mean, varlaventura.net. Your beautiful introduction, so complimentary and beautifully written as well.
Thank you. I did that myself.
I could tell you it was beautifully written. Very nice. Well, let's just take a moment, talk about what we've been up to, and then we'll get into premature burial.
All right, fine. We will do that. We're saving the suspense. All right. Varla Ventura comes on every couple of months. The good part about this time of year, because Halloween fell on the off month when we don't have you scheduled, we decided to book you on in, and you'll be back next month as well, because that's what we do around here. We just, use you and abuse you for great audio entertainment here for our listeners. But they enjoy it. I know you enjoy it, and I certainly enjoy it. But, for you, you are someone who makes a living as an author. And in today's day and age, with everybody self-publishing, everybody having a book out, everybody's a life coach. I don't know how that happened. Why is it that everybody who seems to be a life coach has their life in some reckless abandon? You ever notice that?
I would never try and be a life coach for anyone. I can, I can barely hold on sometimes myself.
My daughter is back in the studio here because the breaker to our home is in my studio, and I really do believe she's trying to blow up the house. I really do believe this.
It's just a ploy. Maybe she wants to be on.
She just stormed out.
She likes scary things because you talked about her on air.
Yes. Now she's embarrassed and she quickly stormed out because she hasn't done her hair tonight. So
Didn't she make you like a beautiful drum one time? She kind of came into the
She did.
Yeah, I remember
Hold
that.
on, where's
yeah.
my drum? Hold on, I gotta
Get your drum.
Hold on.
That's so awesome.
We'll play the drum here. Hold on, we're coming. Oh shit! No. Get everything down. Oh well, we'll just put that over there for now. Here we go.
This is real moments with Dave Scott.
The stuff that you want. Hold on, I gotta hold it properly. That's the drum I got for Christmas.
Yeah. Sounds so good. And she made it, right?
Yes. Had it blessed and everything. You realize my YouTube crowd actually saw me in my pajamas just to get this.
Ooh, see, that's why people should tune in and get the little sneak peek there.
Exactly. All right, now we're going to move on here. Because now that we got the drumming out of the way and, the hostile environment that my daughter caused, Varla Ventura is here. She makes her living as an author, and she likes to write books. And Varla, it's a tough industry these days with self-publishing and everybody and their dog seeming to have a book these days. How do you keep it up?
Well, one thing, I actually have been taking on editorial projects, and that's something that I've done throughout my writing career. It's kind of, wearing the other hat, and typically I will work with authors who have something, in the esoteric genre or the occult genre. And that gives me a lot of perspective. It's, a different way, a different form of income, all of those kinds of things. And it's great. Like most recently, and I think you booked him, right? Did you book Father Sebastian?
I think Corin's the booking guy has done that.
Corin's, I think you're connected with Father Sebastian. So I've been working with him on both his most recent book, and then he's starting to write some memoirs. And he is a sort of a leader in the vampire community. So I think your guests are going to love him when he comes on. But he and I have become friends over the years because I worked on a couple of other books of his years ago, Vampire Magic, and another one called Sanguinomicon. And it was the first time for me that I had really encountered someone who was a vampire who wasn't just wasn't just play acting, but also took it very kind of serious, but in this beautiful, glamorous way. So it was this wonderful, he just kind of walks this line of the esoteric and the sort of the ethereal aspect of what it means to be a vampire, and just kind of daily living, a little bit of like a vampire rock and roll lifestyle. And he's a really interesting fellow and quite a gentleman. So that's another thing that I do. I just take on some editorial work here and there with specific clients, and that's a way to sort of supplement, the trickling royalties from whatever books I've written.
Oh yes, but you know what? You're committed to what you're doing, and you're committed to the life, and you're committed to your artistry and your craft, and that has to be commended, Varla.
Well, thank you. I'm trying to branch out a little, actually. I've been writing some horror fiction. So that's branching out, right?
It sure is. It sure is.
Branching a little. And it's been really, it's something that I've just been working on a lot the last several months, really, since, we've all kind of been in the more isolated state. It just the current times, 2020 just lends itself to dark thinking and a horror state of mind. And I have found myself, perhaps because things are a little extreme to put it mildly. I found myself quite creatively, kind of juiced somehow. There's just a lot that wants to come out, and I've had a few just, characters come to me. One woke me up the other night, and turns out she's a serial killer. So,
oh, hold on, what? Who's a serial killer?
So I've been writing this story actually set in Key West, and I couldn't figure out what this main character. I just didn't know what she wanted. I was like, "Who are you?" Her name is Joan. I was like, "What do you want, Joan? I don't understand you. You're not a very nice person. I can see that you've not done good things in your life." And yeah, then one night I woke up and I just thought, "Oh no, Joan, no, anything but that."
Okay.
And I ended. Yeah.
I gotta ask you. So here you are building this character for your new book.
Yeah.
Correct? And you have a dream about her, of what she is like. It's almost like she spoke to you. Like you created your own character.
Yeah, well, and then she woke me up again and told me not to rush her because I kept asking her what she wanted. And all I just woke up and I heard the words, "Don't rush me," with the drag of a cigarette or something. And I was like, "Hey, Joan, take your time." So
does that happen often to you?
I would say that a lot of the topics that I write about, I mean, and certainly in Paranormal Parlor, a lot of the experiences that I've had have been things that they've been more like an experience. It's woken me up in the night, the tap on the forehead or the pressing down on the bed. And so I talk about like some of those kind of stories. And that was one of the first times that with some of my other books, I didn't personalize them quite to the extent that I did with Paranormal Parlor. And yeah, it happens, I think I just have that type of mind that, I read an article, I read a headline, and the first thing I think of is, sort of the backstory without even reading it. Like, what could have led this man to have, frozen his mother and kept her in the basement freezer? What was the motivation there? These are like news headlines you read. Some guy actually, there's two stories. One was a guy who went to clean. This is a great story. He went to clean out his mother's apartment in like New York somewhere. Very vague details in the article. And when he was cleaning his mother's apartment out, he found a body in the freezer. Or it was her house, right? So not her apartment. Right. He found a body in the freezer. And he called the police, and the police came. So his mother had been hiding a body in the freezer all those years. And so, of course, very vague details. Just my mind was like, what's the backstory? Like, who is this body in the freezer? And and then that led me down a rabbit hole of reading other news stories along those lines of people, freezing, children that have died and freezing them in their, regular kitchen freezer and never being able to part with their bodies and other quite terrifying things like that. So
yeah, there's nothing gross and horrific about that. Right.
And those are real life stories, though. That's not even fiction. That's the real horror out there. The strange things people do.
How much do you draw off the sickness of mankind or humankind when you're writing a book?
Well, I think, it's such a different process with fiction because it really is I have written fiction my whole life, but I've never actually attempted to do anything polished or published with it. So this is a new thing for me to actually think like, oh, I could have this collection. But I think I guess I draw on it a lot because it's really quite now I don't draw on it in like a science fiction doom and gloom type way. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I think it's more about like the things that people will do. It's that same kind of like it's probably because I read Frankenstein when I was so young, but it's that same sort of wrestling with your own morality and what you would do in a certain situation. And that's probably why it's come to mind so much these days, right? Because we're really seeing people's true morality. the truth is coming out about people's behavior. And so you really kind of are seeing, and even within our own families, right, and our loved ones that we may or may not agree with, and I'm sure they're thinking the same thing, about we're thinking the same thing about each other. It's like, oh, you do that, oh, you don't do that, and there's just like a real magnification of that right now. So I think it's kind of easy to twist that into sort of a good, dark psychological reason someone might, perfectly justifiable reason someone might keep this, keep this body. Maybe not perfectly justifiable, but a reason, a plausible reason, I guess. So
is it just another way, maybe, for you to be able to express your own morbid imagination that we all have one, and this is the way it comes out?
Yes, I think it's mostly just been a very cathartic experience for me to take a break. I had a couple of other books that I was working on, and one thing that happened kind of in, I had some plans had travel plans and some research and things like that, and everything just, of course, came to a very slow halt between like January and March and April. And so I think I really, actually, I was taking I take writing classes, and I was taking a writing class with a woman at the very beginning of like pandemic shutdown. And her first advice to all of us was to pivot what we were doing, because it's very hard to keep doing what you're doing creatively when things are not the same around you. It can be very taxing. So for me, that ended up being fiction. So it's definitely like a form of escape. I think that in many ways you can draw on but it's funny because I think that there are people out there that would probably look at my books and just call them fiction because they're heavily based in folklore and cryptids. But in my mind, that's nonfiction. Like, it's different. I'm not making the stories up. I'm sort of like recording the stories and gathering the stories.
Right.
But it's not like a collection of made up ghost stories. These are stories as told to me. So, I guess I differentiate that between fiction and nonfiction. And also just structurally, writing wise, it's a very different thing. You have a table of contents and you have chapters that you write about, and I look at the other books more as like research projects, right? So I'm like reading tons of books and interviewing people and getting ideas and reading articles. But with fiction, I'm researching my own like inner self, I guess, which is
makes sense.
Scary.
Makes sense. Varla Ventura is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. What attracts you to the darker side, the macabre side, the horror side of the paranormal?
I think I've just always really liked it. I've always been attracted to that sort of Addams Family type aesthetic. I find a lot of beauty in it. And I think maybe the fact that it does kind of challenge some norms, and certainly when I was, younger and it wasn't as widely popular, there were, it really kind of challenged some norms, especially in like the little town that I grew up in. So I think I liked that aspect of it, that it wasn't just an ordinary, or what I perceived as ordinary. But then again, a lot of it was ordinary for me because I was just raised in a way that, witchcraft and astrology, tarot reading, hanging out in cemeteries, those are all like just part of the backdrop of my childhood, really. So I find comfort in those things.
All right. So with that, and you are creating your own influence through historic documents, through historic stories, folklore, legends that are all abound on this world. I have to ask you, how much of this that you are writing and creating do you believe is actually real?
I think with the paranormal stories in particular, I weed out a lot of things. I'll tell you that right now, from folklore and both like paranormal and interviews, there have been things that I have chosen not to include in my books for just really kind of like a gut feeling that something about it didn't seem quite right. But I think all of the stories that people have sent me, I believe, and that's why I put them in the book. So then when it comes to like, I actually probably believe in like the cryptid creatures even more now than ever before. And researching that fairy book, that really, I always kind of thought, yeah, fairies are real, right? Like I know that. But really researching those stories. And the other thing is that I've come to understand the kind of like my definition of reality doesn't always, reality shape shifts. And that opens my mind to a lot more possibilities. So I would say I believe, of all the stories I hear, I maybe believe 75% of them. Of the stories that I include in my book, I believe 100% of them.
Interesting. That's a lot of belief in something that's very woo.
Yeah, I'm a supernaturalist, Dave. That's my thing. I mean, do I think it's going to happen to me? Not necessarily. I think everybody has their own gifts and their own experiences. And are there people out there that maybe use repressed memories or trauma to represent other experiences, or their mind does that? Of course, I'm sure that's completely true, but I can't really disprove it. I can't believe it's not possible. And so because of that, I have to accept that the things that I know have happened to me, I know that they happened to me. There's whether other people believe me or not, that's up to them. But I know what happened to me. And so that allows me to be more accepting and open of these things happening to other people. And I have a lot of very close friends who aren't necessarily that woo, who have had really profound paranormal experiences repeatedly. So I believe that.
As you should.
Of course.
As you should. But you also have to draw the line somewhere between fiction and reality.
Yes, well, I think when you get into things like when I'm writing about not so much banshees, but like werewolves, for example, or vampires, but especially werewolves, there's so many things that you have to take into account when you're reading a story. So you know that, for example, someone in the 1500s in Europe could have had ergot poisoning, and that is why they believed that werewolves were roaming the hills and witches were cackling all night, spoiling their crops. And they actually were hallucinating from this, kind of fungus that was growing on the rye that they were making their bread out of. And it was this like mildew that was basically like messing with their minds. So you have to take some of that into account. And the other thing that you always have to take into account is the fact that what we're reading is always what we're reading and digesting is always colored from the lens of whomever has written it down and passed it on. And so, like in the Irish tradition, that's what storytelling is about, passing the story on, adding your own details, telling it in your own way. That's a very treasured, thing.
Right.
But
hold that thought, because we are going to go to break here. And I don't want to have to cut you off while the music's on. I'd sooner cut me off.
Thank you. Sorry
Not a problem.
That.
Varla Ventura is our guest. Spooky Halloween stories coming up when we get back on Spaced Out Radio. We're clear, Varla Ventura.
Awesome. You caught me just before I started railing on, old white men. So
yeah, thank you. I'm one of those, right? All right. Thank you to Mr. DB Cooper for the $4.99 super chat. Looking good in your Superman outfit tonight, my friend. Appreciate that. Hi, Brad 4Z. How are you? Or is it 4C? 4Z or 4C?
Good name.
Yeah, Varla, we're big fans of yours around here. We're going to need a few autographs, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, sure. We're going to meet in Vegas in couple years.
2021 is our year. We are doing this. I can feel it.
Well, the vampire's moving to Vegas, too, so that's fun.
Yes. Big Spaced Out Radio party in Vegas. That's what we're going to do, everyone.
Oh, my gosh. That would be so fun with all your wonderful, dedicated listeners.
I know. You know, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. I don't know what the hell we're doing. We'll start planning it once we know
we're drinking and gambling. We're going to be in Vegas.
Oh, exactly. There's going to be a lot of that. But, you know, we have...
I need it, too.
Or are we
going to do an organized, I don't
know. I don't know if we'll do a conference per se.
It would be fun though.
It would. You know, I think what we're going to end up doing is just I don't know. Maybe we'll rent a room, like a meeting room or something. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Once the border opens. Once the border opens, we'll be able to judge a little bit clearer and set a date and make everything happen. You know, we'll probably end up getting a hold of one of the hotels or something and just saying, "Hey, this is what we want to do. You know, what are you going to charge us? We're going to, give everybody a deal, and then we'll get some packages together and go from there."
Yeah, and we can try and get some special events. We can all go to a seance or do some kind of I don't know. It could be fun. It could be not a conference, but a gathering.
That's all I want. I don't want a conference.
Organized only in so much as, here's what we're doing. We have a few kind of touch points where we're all going to hang out, but otherwise, you're free to roam all night and gamble.
That's except for the party nights. We need everybody there for the party nights.
Yeah. Otherwise, we'll look like fools.
Because it'll really suck. It'll really suck sitting at some what's the word I'm looking for? Center bar at some hotel, and it's just you and me, and we're wondering where the hell everybody else is.
I'm sorry. Did you just say that would suck?
Well, no, it'd be great. It would be great for you and I. But for the rest of them who are out gallivanting, playing bingo, or trying to find little person Elvis on the streets to marry them, I mean, it happens. It's Vegas.
I think the thing is we're just talking about belief, and I'll just kind of say this off air, but in so many ways, it doesn't. Well, I know we're not totally off air.
Yeah, okay.
It doesn't really matter, right? It doesn't actually matter because it's all so weird and wonderful. I don't know. I just like you said, little Elvis and stuff. It's just great.
Oh yeah. I can't wait. The only issue that I will have through the entire thing is that I got to be a good boy because it'll be a business trip. So I got to be a good boy. I do.
Technically, it would be a business trip in some ways, right?
Oh yes, yeah. We'll see.
Oh well, if I can just speak in a room with multiple people, I could call that a presentation, and then
right off.
Business.
We'll make it business friendly. How about that?
Business witch.
Yeah, which means that anybody who we do have speak will have to run off and drink in a private area, probably all alone, and disappear for the night. Because you don't want to make yourself look like an ass in front of the people, right?
Oh, it's Vegas.
That's true. That's true. But you have to have a modicum of decorum.
Yeah, you just do 8 p.m. speaker, and then, it's so early. I love that slot, the 8 p.m. slot. It's perfect.
Sure.
It's after dark. Yeah.
All right.
Actually, I'm speaking a little thing this Friday. I'm doing a virtual conference.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Nice. All right, here we go, everyone. Thank you to Mr. D.B. Cooper for the super chat. kicking things off tonight. Remember to hit that subscribe button, thumbs up, and the bell. Here we go, guys. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now kicked off. I'm Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters, surrounded by snow outside. Yeah, still and already. Not happy about that. That means I'm going to have to work tomorrow. Work tomorrow in this stuff. I know. Everybody's like, oh, man, you got to work? Yeah, I got to clean up my yard, man. It's not even ready. I still have hoses under the snow, man. It sucks. It sucks. But got to do it. Got to do it. Hey, I want to remind you that if you miss portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter @SpacedOutRadio and on Instagram @SpacedOutRadioShow. We are talking with Varla Ventura tonight, varlaventura.net. Varla comes on in here because she is one of our favorite guests when it comes to everything weird, strange, folklorish, legendary. She's legendary herself, and that's why we love her. Varla, welcome back.
Why, thank you.
Good to have you here. Good to have you here.
Thank you.
All right. Something about a body.
I don't know. Should we get into premature burial? Are we ready?
Well, it's better than premature other things, so we might as well.
Oh, Dave. Well, I think the thing about premature burial is that it's a kind of a universal fear. Like if you ask somebody what's your greatest fear, people are going to say a couple different things. They're probably going to say heights. Some people might say, I don't know, something like spiders or something like that. I'm not afraid of spiders. But pretty frequently, you'll have that fear of being buried alive, claustrophobia, actually like waking up in the inside of a coffin and, having to like scratch your way out. So this is actually not an unfounded fear. And so I thought we could just kind of talk about that a little bit. And I have a couple stories for you along those lines.
I'm already freaked out, by the way.
The idea of the scratching coffin lid was pretty much it. Okay, I got to grab my glasses here. All right. So, again, this is a common fear because it would happen from time to time, especially throughout the ages when we began writing down ghost stories and spooky stories and things like that. But I will take you back in time, to say across time, but especially if you're in like the Scotland in the 1600s, you'll find that premature burial was a great fear, but more greater than that was grave robbing. So you had a number of things that people would do in order to try to like prevent premature burial. There was actually something that I wrote about years ago that later I found out wasn't actually real, but it was this idea. It was called the Bateson Revival device. And it was this thing that was basically a bell that went down on a string down into the grave. And if you woke up and found that you were buried alive, you could ring this bell. There's evidence now that was a hoax, that this person didn't actually invent this thing, but there are several other devices that were along those lines, including a telephone line, a sort of like, wasn't really an actual telephone, it was sort of like a tube that went up and would connect out so you could yell and people could hear you. And other things like cages. Now, those cages weren't necessarily to prevent, they were really to prevent grave robbing, especially during the time that there was a great deal of advancement in modern medicine and how corpses and cadavers actually were procured was through grave robbing. And so if you were well enough off, you would have a sort of an iron cage placed around your crypt. And you can still see evidence of these today, especially in the old cemeteries in Scotland, like around in Edinburgh. So there's a couple different instances, it was body snatching, really. And you can actually see that in the mid 1600s, it was very prominent throughout Europe. Basically, primarily, it was done to sell the corpse to medical students, and it was usually done by a couple of grave robbers who could take the ring while they were at it, because of course they weren't interested in the corpse, and the medical schools were not interested in the jewelry. And actually, I recently heard a story about a case from Harvard where this doctor basically stole this guy came to visit him, and he murdered him and chopped up his body and stuffed it down his latrine in order to try and hide it, but that it was actually common practice that corpses would appear around Harvard when they were in the medical department. So along those lines, so now we're talking about that. So along those lines, you had instances of people who were who actually were buried alive. I read a story last month about a man who woke up in his own who woke up in a mortuary, in a morgue, alive. And he was freezing and he started shaking. He didn't exactly sit up and have full consciousness, but they noticed that he was breathing, and they rushed him to the hospital. But by the time they got him there, he, of course, didn't make it. And obviously, if you've been pronounced dead, even mistakenly, you're probably, not super healthy at that moment. So they tried to revive him, but alas, they did not. So you have lots and lots of accounts along those lines. So that was one of the most recent ones. In 2005, a funeral director in Massachusetts found a corpse in a body bag to actually be alive.
That has been in the news a number of times this past year.
Disturbo, right?
Totally.
And that totally feeds that fear of being buried alive, especially if you don't. There's a time when there's mass casualties, so to speak. I feel like it kind of increases the chances of that. This is another story that I wrote about a woman in 2014. This is really scary. So you said to go dark, and I'm going there.
Let's do this.
A woman in Macedonia was reported as having been buried alive. Children playing near the cemetery could hear her screams. She was dug up, still alive, but ultimately died of asphyxia shortly after being transported to the hospital. Can you imagine, as a child? And remember, I told you I spent a lot of time in cemeteries, and that's like the absolute thing that all horror movies show, is like something screaming in the graveyard, and that it actually happens. And in 2015 case in Greece, very similarly, when visiting the grave of the deceased, the family actually said they heard her screaming. They exhumed her body, conducted an autopsy, and found that she had died in the coffin of a heart attack and had appeared dead prior to that because of a medically induced coma. So she woke up and died.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So you have a lot of kind of stories like that. I have kind of a fun one along those lines. And that's the story of Half-Hanged Maggie. And there's a number of these stories. If you read any kind of collection of Scottish ghost tales, or I've spent a little bit of time over there and gone on the, underground walking tours. They're wonderful storytellers. There's a number of these kind of stories of a loved one who actually wakes up. But this story is a little bit fun. It's the tale of Half-Hanged Maggie. And there's a woman named Maggie who actually found herself pregnant out of wedlock. and tried to remedy that situation herself with specific herbs and abortifacients, but was found out by the church and basically declared that she was guilty of a crime, and the punishment was hanging. So they hang her, and she dies. They cut her down. The family gathers the body, and they put her on a little cart, and they kind of start that long walk back to their little village outside of the town. And along the way, as they're pushing the cart, they stop at the pub, and they go into the pub for a little bit because, they're just really so sad about poor young Maggie. And while the family's in the pub sort of, having that drink and mourning her, she actually wakes up. And it just happened that there was a passerby who was a young medical student and sort of attended to her and realized that she was alive and was actually okay. And eventually, went inside, got the family. They kind of, she wasn't quite herself yet, but they sort of revived her, and then eventually, took her home, and eventually she recovered, and she went on to live a very full life. She died in her 70s, and she had 6 children. And everybody just called her Half-Hanged Maggie from there on out because she had survived a hanging.
Oh,
That's
nice.
a delightful one for you.
That is delightful. that is. Where do you find this stuff?
So that story, I'm trying to remember if that was first told to me. And so I have a friend in Scotland who is a really, I've fallen out of touch with him, but he is a extreme clairvoyant. Like, he sometimes can't walk by a cemetery because he hears so many things. And when I visited him, he had several books, and one of the books he gave to me, and I brought it home. It's just a collection of Scottish ghost stories. I don't have it in front of me, so I don't know the exact title, but I just read it in there, and I just loved that story. And then just the other night, I heard a very similar version. I was, the Edinburgh Horror Festival is all virtual this weekend, and so you can go on there, and there are all these presentations and plays and things like that, and storytelling in the horror genre. And there was a woman who came on and told a very similar story of like a man whose wife had died, and he was very sad, and he laid her out in the crypt, and she sort of woke up. Actually, they left her body unguarded. That's what it was. So they left her body unguarded because this was, of course, the same time period in which bodies were taken all the time. And they kind of realized that they had not left someone on guard and locked up the body. And it was overheard in the pub by these 2 grave robber guys. So they went over there to, easy target. They knew that no one was watching the body. And when her name was Mary and his name was John, of course. And they went to snatch the body, and she had woken up and was actually okay and didn't understand what was going on. And so she sort of, shuffled back, kind of out of it, shuffled back to the house and knocked on the door, and was obviously very pale and sickly because she had just woken up from something so grave that they had pronounced her dead. And when he opened the door, he thought it was the ghost of her. And she said, "I've come back to you." And he just lost it and started, screaming and ran. Ultimately, he kind of recovered, and he thought he was living with a ghost. And eventually he realized that she was actually alive. So kind of a similar story for similar reasons, I guess, the kind of waking up and the body snatchers discover him. And interestingly, Dave, I don't know if you know this, but the whole thing with Dracula, or like vampires, like sitting up slowly in their coffin with their kind of arms across their chests. So I was, when I was researching the vampire book, I read a bunch of different accounts of that, and then someone had said, well, there's something that is actually rigor mortis, and that if you have a heavy lid on a body, and the arms across was how people were frequently laid when they were laid to rest. And if you had a coffin, that coffin lid's holding you down, that if it were soon enough, that if you popped the lid off, the body would actually spring up because of rigor mortis. And that, then people thought that the dead were coming, because a corpse moving is terrifying, so the dead were coming back to life and would go screaming out of there and declare it a vampire. So that's kind of where that very iconic, like slow rising vampire actually came from, the idea of a corpse sitting up.
That's still kind of gross. Still kind of gross, but that's why we love our Varla Ventura around here. Feel like we all need a couple of Hail Marys after that one.
Oh, yeah. You're going to want to take a bath, probably. Now, you have someone, I think you said in the chat that there's someone from Florida. So this, Steph, right?
Yeah.
So Steph may have heard this story.
Let's do it.
Okay. So this is like probably one of the most haunting and gross stories I've ever heard. And I actually was told to me a number of years ago when I was traveling. And then last year, or what year is it? I think it was last year. I was in Key West and picked up a little book in the bookshop, Haunted, or actually on one side it's Haunted Key West by David L. Sloan, and on the other side it's Strange Key West by Matthew Sean Casey. And it's one of those books that you flip upside down, and it's just like kind of printed side by side. And I found the story in there that I had been told years ago, and it's supremely, well, some might think it's romantic. It's the story of a man, he lived in Key West, and his name was Count Karl von Kossel. And he was in love with a woman named Elena. He actually lived with her corpse for 7 years before it was discovered. So basically, the story is that he was deeply in love with her. He actually he immigrated to Florida from Germany. He left behind a wife and 2 children, and he fell in love. He was working in a hospital, and he fell in love with a patient who was rather sickly. She had tuberculosis, and her name was Elena Milagro Hoyos Mesa. So shortly before Halloween in 1931, probably on a night just like this, Elena died. And he actually married her while they were in the hospital. Or actually, he had tried to marry her while they were in the hospital, but she was married already. So I love the way he wrote this. So while working there, he met and fell in love with the patient. Carl wanted to marry her, but 2 things blocked his path: her husband, Luis, and her advanced case of tuberculosis. Well, she died. 2 years after she died, he removed her body from the cemetery in the middle of the night. And then he took her to his home, and then he reconstructed part of her face with wax. Oh. And he put glass eyes and a wig, and he dressed her body in white and slipped a ring upon her finger and married her and kept her for 7 years. Now, there's a little twist to the story, because it seemed that he could actually be seen occasionally. People would walk by the house and see him sort of like dancing with someone. And he would offer her food. He slept in the same bed with her. Eventually, her family realized that something was amiss. I think what did he do? I think he somehow, the mother showed up. She was just suspecting something. So I don't know if someone had reported him or had seen something, but eventually the mom and the sister went to his house and saw this, exquisite corpse that he was living with. And yeah, they took the body away. Then he actually went back and reclaimed it from a funeral home, and or tried to go back and reclaim it from this funeral home, but the family was able to keep him away, and actually they buried her in a secret location so he could never, even though he of course was ultimately arrested, so he could never go again. And
see, that's how ghosts and demons are created, right there.
So,
you know, like all of a sudden, if he's dead now, he's probably walking around and getting angry that he can't find the body of his ex-wife or his deceased wife.
Yeah. Well, the story, the book that I was reading had, so it was also from like it's one of the guys that does the ghost tours down there as well. And so over the years, because of course this was back in the 30s, the other thing to take into account here is Key West and the humidity.
The stench must have been horrific.
Exactly. And that's what the writer says. He says, I don't know, I live here. I don't know how he could have masked that smell for all those years. I don't know. Maybe a lot of it was, I don't know. That's part we can really don't need to speculate on. But it's absolutely the darkest love story I've ever heard, and it's one that I've never included it in any of the books that I've written, because it actually is just it's so intense. It's one that you share around the campfire, but you don't necessarily want to read over and over again. I mean, some people say it was true love. What great lengths he went to preserve her body.
I can see that. Yeah. And I got to tell you, as you were telling that story, you know, when you eat really cold ice cream and it gets in behind your teeth and you kind of get that reaction. I had that.
Yeah,
I had that.
It's really gross. The part that's incredibly gross too is the way that he kind of reassembled her with a bit of wax, and you put eyes in her and fake hair, and that's dressing her up.
I don't get it. Don't get it. It's not pleasant. Not pleasant. You don't want to go down that road. Down that road. And like Goddess Michelle on Twitter says, and she says, "Hello, Varla Ventura, by the way."
Oh, I love you. Hi.
I know. She asks another morbid question here. How many people have been cremated and not dead?
That's a good.
That is my nightmare right there.
Screaming? Yeah. Would you hear them screaming? No. They let that thing on fire, close down that iron door, and walk away for 45 minutes or however long it takes. And that, I don't know if you've ever been around when someone's been cremated, nope. But it's pretty loud. I mean, I've never been in the actual, there's a funeral that I attended, and they did allow people, if they wanted to witness it. I mean, you don't see the whole, actually you do. I didn't watch the whole body slide in, but you could hear the roar. It's so loud. So I guess you may or may not hear someone screaming, but this is also another very interesting topic that we could get into, just about why there's, you see these kind of examples and you understand why there were so many death rituals, like wakes and, walking and staying up all night to make sure that somebody didn't take your loved one's body and You know what I can't stand is people who take photographs, pose for family photos at funerals. Don't like that. That is weird. And that was a Victorian practice too. Using taking the hair of dead loved ones and weaving it into these sort of like frames, creating art. And
hold that thought. We're going to hop out for break here at the top of the hour. 1 hour down. We Varla Ventura for another 90 minutes here on Spaced Out Radio before the news and the thought of the day. More spooky stories with Varla Ventura right after this. Okay, I'm going to run my dogs outside. I'll be right back, okay?
This is John Resig, founder of the Tribe and Tribe Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little different. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Tribe Charities, just go to tribecharities.org/donate.
Hello, space travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month. And follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter @Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at MightyMooseBeard.com today.
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight. What to do? What to do?
Why not get Bumblefuck?
4 million Scoville units of pure hard rock. Bumblefoot hot sauces come in 3 flavors. The burning Bumble. Tone it down a bit with Bumblicious and throw the sauce on everything.
Spice it up. Bumble me, baby. Bumblefoot hot sauce. Get it today at kajans.com.
For the price of 1 cup of coffee a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. The Space Travelers Club is a place where you can interact with other listeners, either live during the show or on our great forum. We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be a part of our newsletter. Stay in touch with everything SOR. The Space Travelers Club is just $5 a month at spacedoutradio.com.
Hi. This is Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel where we store all of the SOR show archives for free. And as an added bonus, every 2 weeks I'm posting brand new content on Cryptid Tales, where I will get into some of the spookier legends and folklore from around the world and tell the stories that go with them. Find us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio and check out Cryptid Tales today. Drop a comment and let me know what you want to hear. See you there.
Hi there, this is the paranormal lawyer Michael W. Hall. I'd like to invite you to listen in each Sunday night where we're going to open up your eyes to everything strange and paranormal. I will be hosting some great guests with topics that affect us all, such as UFOs, ghosts, and everything paranormal. Let's learn together on Spaced Out Radio Sunday with myself, Michael W. Hall, the paranormal lawyer at spacedoutradio.com.
We are scouring the world for the most intriguing stories of your day. Take the time to read up on the SOR Newswire, where our team, led by Captain Shirk, will deliver to you some of the best paranormal and supernatural news, along with some stories that will blow your mind from the weird to the wacky. It's the news outside the news that piques interest, and that's what we're looking to deliver to you. The SOR Newswire, only at Spaced Out.
All right, I'm back.
Hi.
Hi. My headphones fell. Hold on. Now I can hear you.
Great.
Yeah. It's the way we roll around here, throwing headphones all over the place.
Yeah, I have those kind of headphones that they work really well, but if I laugh, smile, guffaw, cringe, they basically fall out of my ears. So,
do you want to take a picture on Instagram with me?
How?
Just put your camera on.
Okay, hang on.
Hold on. Hold on. Let's,
how? Okay, hold on.
So, like this. Oh, wrong area. Gotta flip that. Hold on.
I can't see you because of...
Was my microphone in the way?
No, because the virtual background, your hands disappear into the
Okay,
alien background.
You're there, though. You're there.
Okay, I trust you.
Smile. Oh, it's blurry. Hold on. Or is it? No, that's just my eyes. And your eyes are closed.
Oh, damn it.
Hold on,
Okay,
we're going to have to redo this. We only got like a minute.
Okay.
Hi.
Okay, say 3, 2, 1, so don't close my eyes.
Okay, hold on. That one's terrible. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Look at those blue eyes. Your eyes are like blue.
Uh-huh. Try not to blink or anything.
Oh, my forehead. I'm wrinkled up on my forehead. Hold on. Hold on. Here we go. Last one. We're running out of time here. Ah! Oh, God, that's terrible.
Wait.
Last time. Look straight ahead. We're using it. No matter what, we're using it.
I can't tell.
Son of a bitch. You know, I honestly, I'm an ugly cuss. I'm not pretty. I'm not handsome.
You know what's really hard too is like knowing where to look because
Right.
when I'm looking at you, which is not straight ahead, and then
I know.
and I'm looking at you to make sure I don't look like an idiot.
All right,
So.
here we go.
Oh,
2 seconds.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is underway tonight. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us because we are live and we are having some fun tonight with our guest, Varla Ventura. We want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live and Revolution Radio. Remember, you can check out all of our archives for free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Phantasm. Phantasm is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. From varlaventura.net, we have Varla Ventura on tonight, talking all things weird, spooky, strange. You can find all of her books on Amazon or her website. Once again, varlaventura.net. Varla, welcome back.
Why, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's like I never left.
You know, and for our audience who is listening to this on the radio side, you have no idea how difficult the last 2.5 minutes were. Because
it was really hard.
It was extremely difficult because we were trying to take a selfie. Me live taking the selfie with Varla posing on Skype with her camera on. It was difficult. It was hard. I'll tell you, I'm not attractive. That's the first thing I am going to say. I am not attractive. But you can go to my Instagram page, my personal one, and I'll tag in our show one too. Our show is at Spaced Out Radio Show. Mine is at Dave Scott SOR. You'll be able to see it there very, very soon. Varla, you're continuing with spooky Halloween stories tonight. What kind of ghost stories do you have for us?
Oh, well, I wanted to just give you a couple more terrifying examples of being buried alive, just real quick, if I could.
All right, let's do that.
Then we'll get into ghost stories.
Okay. Freak me out even more.
I found on the break, I actually found in this book that I have, which is a wonderful book. It's called Corpses, Coffins, and Crypts, A History of Burial by Penny Coleman. And it's an absolutely beautiful book, and it definitely takes a more historical view of just burial practices. But I found an example. I knew there was a guy. So there's this in Highland Falls, New York. It's called the Veal Memorial, and it's this. If anyone's been there, because I haven't seen it in person, but I'm looking at the picture right now. But it's this giant pyramid. It's very, very big and obvious. So he had a big memorial. His name was Egbert Ludovicus Viel, which is a pretty fantastic name. So he had this huge memorial built for he and his wife, but he was so afraid of being buried alive that he rigged up a buzzer system that would actually ring from the inside of his crypt to the cemetery caretaker's house if he found himself alive inside the memorial. And it never actually, he died in 1902. His body was placed in a sarcophagus inside the memorial. The buzzer never rang, although one caretaker reported being seriously startled until he realized that what he thought was the buzzer was only the telephone. And now the buzzer has been disconnected after all these years. I figured, enough is enough.
No kidding. No kidding. I'm going to be honest with you. This topic just scares the daylight out of me.
It's scary, right? I mean, it is. It's a scary topic, especially because unlike some of the more sort of esoteric or maybe supernaturalist kind of topics, this is real stuff that people have experienced and are afraid of. I'm not saying the other stuff isn't real, but this is much more quantifiable. They actually know that this guy put this buzzer in there. They have unearthed coffins with the scratch marks on the lid. So you have things like that. So we can get into ghosts.
You are twisted. You are twisted and sick. I'm just going to say that.
I just want to say that Dave and I before each show we usually just have like a quick touch base just to make sure our technology is working and that we have the right numbers and everything. We have the right times and all of that. And just a quick hello, like great. And we don't really plan much at this point, right, Dave? We're just like,
right.
What do you want to talk about? Cryptids, whatever. Okay.
That's right.
But this time you said to me, all right, well, I want to go dark. And I said, okay. And you said, no, I want to go really dark. So I'm just trying to...
You're giving away my secrets here. I try to go an off-the-cuff show here, not trying to make it sound like it's planned, and you just ruined it. You ruined it. Secret over.
It's not planned at all. It's just I was requested via a message that we go dark.
True.
So I felt like I really needed to bring the darkest of the dark because it is almost Halloween and it is very dark, and that's I consider that a challenge that I readily accept.
Well, you took us to a place where we just need to
expect it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wait, now, so I do want to say one other kind of gruesome story that's related to a corpse, if I may. Just
okay, one more.
One more corpse one. Now, this one isn't. So I just learned about this like 3 nights ago. I had, and I have in my book a whole section on sort of like death rituals. And one of the death rituals, and I think we may have talked about it on the show, is sin eating, where you essentially, on the corpse, you put a plate of salt, and upon that you put a piece of bread or sometimes other food, and then someone comes and eats the sins, basically eats this bread off the corpse to like alleviate them of the sins so they can, go on into whatever with no sins.
Right.
So I now this was very most common in the British Isles, and in particular I learned about it through a book of old Welsh folklore. So I was kind of just like playing around and like looking up at some other old books of Welsh folklore, and I found this other story along those lines. It was kind of in the same section where this other writer was talking about sin eating, but there was another practice in which a body was, enshrouded, and people were doing the walking, which was like the Welsh variation on the wake, and sitting up. And there was this really weird practice where they would wrap a rope around the corpse, and they would actually, first they would climb up on their roof and they would drop the rope down the chimney, and then they would tie the other end to the corpse, and they would basically drag this body up through the chimney and then let it come back down and then drag it up through the chimney again. Now, the writer, this is written in like 1911 or something, the writer went on to talk about how some old people swore that this was just a prank. Other people didn't know the origins of it, but there were several accounts of this actually happening. So is that worse than premature burial, or, being, body snatched to be operated on at a, covert medical facility? I don't know.
I don't know either. That kind of ties in what Butch Wachowski has stated a number of times on this show, that with the Federal Bureau of Investigations in the United States, 1.3 million Americans go missing annually. And when they whittle down the numbers, with murders and runaways and people who are, changing their identities and or whatever it may be, all right, it comes down to 65,000 people unaccounted for annually on average.
Oh, my God. That's a lot. That's a lot.
Aliens,
now,
man. Aliens.
Aliens, or could it be fairies?
Ooh.
Now, I think we think of fairies as like, woo or sort of magical, or, if you've listened to me talk about fairies, you probably don't think that they're all light and glittering wings. But there's a kind of a dark side to fairies, even beyond what I've talked about, and that is the kind of in the same category of changelings, the fairy murders.
Oh, the fairy murders.
Yeah, and this was so I had read quite a few. Like, I find changelings particularly disturbing. For anyone out there who doesn't know what that is, it's a basically usually a fairy switch. So the fairies will take a baby and leave this other being in between, or they'll just take the baby. I found some accounts where also young mothers were taken as well. They might be taken by, and occasionally even pregnant women and their midwives could be taken by the fairies into, the fairy kingdom. But the fairy murders are something kind of next level. They were particularly common or commonly reported up until probably about the late 1800s in Ireland specifically. And they were thought to be a quote unquote regular occurrence especially in rural Ireland. Sometimes, this is pretty bad actually, but sometimes what would happen is people didn't know what things were, right? So while we know that there's always the possibility of these supernatural beings, we also know today that some things that were called other things, such as diagnosable diseases or abnormalities, were sort of dismissed as the fairies. And actually, anyone who's ever read or watched Outlander, there's an example of this. If somebody thought their baby was a changeling, they would leave it on the fairy mound, and it could just be a sickly child. And so I won't go too down this road, but there are quite a few very, very gruesome examples of usually children being murdered because they thought they were changelings. So, you kind of have that, one, the terrifying idea that something would happen to your own child, and two, the idea that someone would actually think that this was wrong with their child and would result in sort of the fairy murders. Now, as a result, of course, you had quite a number of hauntings and hills. And so sometimes when the stories have sort of gotten mixed up, but when you hear these stories of like, a haunted fairy mound or something like that, people actually believe that it could be the souls of these little children who were killed because they were thought to be changelings. And I guess changelings were really viewed as something that would, eat you out of house and home and cause you a life of misery and ill luck. So,
isn't that what we call or define as teenagers today?
Yeah. Yeah, like they drink so much milk. It's just incredible.
All right. Horror Realm is asking if you have heard about any of the stories about fairies saving people during very bad tornadoes a few years back.
I haven't, but I wouldn't be incredibly surprised if people reported that, because I have heard a number of stories along the lines of, mermaids kind of leading people out of storms and fog. Even I have a friend who grew up on a sailboat, and her mother told me a story about that, as well as people being sort of lost and disoriented in the woods and being let out. So I haven't heard those stories in particular, but I would love to.
All right, let's go over to Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio, where Goddess Michelle, sticking with fairies, is asking if you've personally received any messages from fairies lately, and if so, would you kindly share them with us?
I don't know that I've had any specific messages from fairies lately. I think my messages are actually coming from some other entities. I don't know what they are, but I've been definitely getting some strange messages, especially in dream. But I did have quite a little interesting thing happen in my garden that may or may not be fairy related. I love pumpkins. Of course, no surprise there, right? Like, I like to grow pumpkins. And so I have a good sized garden, and I was growing pumpkins. And man, just like 2020, none of my pumpkins were thriving. It was just like, really, this is the year I'm not traveling anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. And my pumpkins they're just doing nothing. And so I went over to my little, fairy garden, and I was like, look, guys, if there's anything you can do. I had my son come with me. I was like, the pumpkins I've done, I've tried all my botanical tricks. We must resort to begging. And so we left a little offering, and, we just have this little kind of fairy thing under the apple tree in the back. And I just, left a little gift and asked you if there's anything you can do in particular with the pumpkins. And I am not kidding. Within a week, I had 10 pumpkins growing on a vine that had 2, and the other vines weren't producing any. And then my mom, right around the same time, I think it was the full moon in early September, or maybe it was a full, must have been a little bit earlier, maybe in August. Anyway, my mom told me a kind of a similar story where she went out and she, for reasons I won't disclose on the over the air, she needed to do a little spell work to take care of something. And she claimed she didn't realize it was a full moon when she did this, but she went out anyway, and she did this sort of banishing thing. And it was full moon, and she went out the next morning, and her garden had grown, like, suddenly tomatoes were sprouting, and everything seemed to have grown inches. And my sister, who is not as nearly as on the other side as I am, actually said, yeah, it was very strange, because I was at Mom's house that day and the garden didn't look very good, and then the next day I went down and it was incredible. So I don't know, maybe the message from the fairies is just ask and you'll receive. Get us out of this.
Do you think all of these little cryptid creatures suffer from 2020 as well?
Well, what's interesting is your cohort, Michael C. Hall, the paranormal lawyer. Is it C. Hall? I think so. W. Hall, yes. So I was on with him, and sorry, I hope that's not a betrayal.
Nope, that's perfectly fine. It's kind of the same network.
Yes. So I was on with him, and at the very beginning of the show, he has the UFO guy come on and talk about different sightings and stuff. And so before he got off, and I don't remember his name, but before he got off, I said, I just want to know, like, have you noticed an increase in sightings? Because I don't know about where you live, Dave, but typically, because I'm in the path of, like, the airport, I typically hear quite a few airplanes, but the air traffic has been so nominal for months. I was just kind of curious, like, are you seeing or witnessing more things? And he actually said that he's had a 50, I think, you see 40 or 50% increase in sightings reported in the last several months, which I think is remarkable. So I think they're, they're in another kind of like space-time continuum. They're just cavorting around, like hoping we figure it out. That's my theory.
Oh, wow. Well, we're going to figure it out. We got 4 minutes here before we got to go to break. At the bottom of the hour, Varla Ventura is our guest tonight. We all think ghost goblins around this time of year, and it's a little late to start talking some ghosts. However, we will in the next half hour.
Perfect.
Exactly. But what intrigues you about this side of the paranormal that most people know?
Well, I think that especially this time of year, and the whole idea of Halloween being a time when these things actually could come through from the other side. And it's not just Halloween, it's Samhain and Dia de los Muertos. There's so many traditions around this time of year, certainly in the northern hemisphere, when we're kind of going into the darkness of winter, where it's, feels like the veil is thinner. And I have always really felt like there is more sort of supernatural and frenetic energy. And I think that idea that they're kind of, it's almost like they kind of slowly peeking out, and then eventually they can, show themselves. So I guess I think that there's something about maybe just getting a glimpse of that invisible it's like a never-ending quest, right? It's like the most ultimate, like, never-ending choose your own adventure story. Because that's really what it is, right? Like we no matter what we do, we can really we can have our opinions, we can collect evidence, but we're really not going to have it completely figured out. And that leads to so many interesting conversations and experiences. And I think that's part of what's so intriguing about the quest for the paranormal or the supernatural, and looking for cryptids and trying to explain the unexplainable.
That's what we're all searching for.
Yeah.
That's what we're all searching for.
In the dead of night.
Can we find it? I don't know. But especially at this time of year, people love things that go bump in the night, even though it's not good for them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They like to stay up all night. It's easier to stay up all night when it gets dark so early, right?
I'm saying for the spooky stuff. I don't think a lot of people understand the ramifications and the potential danger of it all.
Yeah, like making contact with things that might, like, hang around or impersonate other things.
You're going down my road.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I mean, I'm in a little bit of a camp about that, maybe slightly skeptical camp, because I don't know. I mean, can you really have something so extreme? Yeah, I guess you can, really. There's plenty of instances of it. I agree. I think that there's pretty simple precaution. I mean, that's why you light the giantest bonfire on the darkest night of the year, because you're trying to burn away that darkness and protect yourself and your loved ones with that fire and that heat and that light, shining it out there. And I think if you are reckless, like, I'm not gonna lie, I've done the Ouija board under the influence of things I probably shouldn't have done, and who knows what long-term repercussions that may have in many ways. But I stopped because I've had a few experiences, one which the board, really just went flying. And it was humbling is what it was, because I realized how dangerous and how little I knew about what I was doing at the time. Now I was, 16. So, yeah.
Well, so far so good. You just deal with weird stuff all day long. Varla, I'm going to get you to hold on. We're going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. We continue with spooky ghost stories and Varla Ventura. Her website, varlaventura.net. Find all our books on our website or on Amazon. We'll be back with more Spooky Halloween right after this. All right, we're back. We're back. I got it posted. Tweeted it to you.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
I'll look.
You're looking fantastic. I look like terrible. Honestly. My forehead looks like a bunch of areas where you could lie down guitar strings.
Yeah, I'm looking right now. There's so many. Oh my god. How come I'm so big? I was expecting to be small, like on my screen. Oh, that's funny. Oh,
you look fine.
Cute.
You look fine.
I think it's cute.
We were
and it shows the
Instagramming.
moment. I look a little crazy, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah. We're all fans. We're all fans. I am hungry, though.
Oh, can you go get a snack real quick?
I'll wait until after the show.
Yeah. Oh.
It's not like I don't have anything in reserves.
Cool. All right, so let me think. So I've got some ghost stories in my book, but I'm not sure if they're really dark enough for tonight.
Just throw something at us.
Well, we could talk about Robert the Doll. That's really dang scary. That's a bit of a ghost story.
Let's just go.
Yeah.
Let's just go.
He's freaky.
Yeah, we'll get into Robert next.
Yeah, Robert the Doll. So I saw him when I was down there, and it was really funny though, because my mom, like, she got a stomach ache, and she was like convinced that it was Robert the Doll, and I was like, well, did you say something to Robert, when I wasn't there? She said, no, I was really nice to him. I said, were you patronizing? Maybe he doesn't like being patronized. I was just messing with her. Poor mom. Oh, let's see. I've got this one book that has some really scary, weird, old Italian ghost stories in it.
You just get them ready and line them up, and we will do this.
Okay.
I love this story coming out of Washington, D.C., where this lady named Vivian crossed off a major item off her bucket list at the age of 102. She jumped.
Oh.
She went on a tandem skydiving jump.
No.
Yes.
Oh, that's so cool.
So watching the footage right now, and she is just, she is. I don't know if she's enjoying it or not, but she looks great.
She's doing it.
She's totally doing it. Good for her. Good for her. I love it. I've never jumped out of a plane.
Me either.
But I can honestly say this. If I'm lucky enough to hit 100 years old, I will do it, because at 100 years old, if that chute doesn't open, it's a good time to go.
Right. Exactly.
know?
Not necessarily a good time to go when, you've got children to take care of or whatever.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Oh, and here they come in for a landing. I love stories like this.
Yeah, I know, me too. It's so cool.
She looks
like you just want to be that old person.
I know. She just looks so happy. So happy. Oh, and the guy gives a perfect landing, too. Perfect landing.
Yeah, they probably had their, like, most experienced, like...
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That is just awesome. Good for her. Oh, she's waving and big smiles on her face. God bless her. God bless her. What a lovely, lovely lady. Oh, you got to see the smile on her face. She's just like, ooh, wait. You know, it's awesome. Love that. Love that. No, I am not going surfing for my 100th birthday because I know that I'll still be a meal for great whites or megalodon or something. Nope. Nope. Not doing it. Okay, Varla, here we go.
Okay.
We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I'm Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on with our Halloween special with Varla Ventura. Her website, varlaventura.net. You can get all of her books on her website or on Amazon, and we love it. And she's also in every major bookstore, too. Yeah, she's everywhere.
Yep.
Just look for Varla. You know, she goes, it's like Madonna, Cher. You go into a bookstore. Where's Varla? Where's Varla? Need some Varla here. You know? You remember that lady who went absolutely nuts on the bookstore person a few years ago? Video totally went viral, and she was like screaming her head off because they didn't have the book that she wanted. I want to do that with one of your books.
Listen, my mom did that. When we were in Key West last year, my mom walked into the store that had like all mermaid and pirate stuff. And she walked in there and she asked for my mermaid book. And then when the woman said she hadn't heard of it, my mom was like, oh, you really should get it. And very haughtily like walked out.
Nice.
Let's go.
Nice.
That was great. I was just like, Ma, what just happened?
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. Ma stuck up for you there. Ma really stuck up for you. Go figure. Good mom. Good mom. All right, ghost stories. What do you got for us?
Well, we can talk a little bit, since I just mentioned Key West, we can talk a little bit about Robert the doll, who's said to be a haunted doll. Now, I don't know, I mean, if anybody, you do a quick Google search and you will find, I think I might have posted some pictures on my website also, so you're allowed to take pictures of Robert the doll, but you must ask permission first. So he's kind of this like semi-decomposing little sort of large little boy sailor doll. Like he's bigger than like a Barbie or something like that, right? Like he's a fairly substantial size, and was probably a very expensive dolly back in the day. And the story is that this little doll was given to this man when he was a little boy. His name was Robert Eugene Otto, and so Robert the doll was given the name because of that. And so he basically kept this doll all the time, and then later it was stored in the attic of his family home. And there were reports that they would hear this doll sort of like, something in the attic or a thing kind of like scurrying around. And then the next generation of people who lived there, when they bought the house, the doll was left behind in the attic long after the original Robert Otto had passed away. and another little child. And again, this is, he had moved away. I don't know if he was dead yet, but anyway, he was a grown man and he was going about his business, and this other family moved in. And so another child had the doll, and the child started reporting things like that Robert was talking to him, and that Robert was starting to tell him to do bad things and harm people in his family and various sort of scary things like that. So they eventually, there was so much legend around this doll that it was donated to this museum, and now he's in this museum. It's called like the East Leo Martello Museum, and it's part of like one of the haunted Key West tours you do. You go and see Robert the doll, which I didn't realize, and I had heard of Robert the doll, but I didn't like think, oh, we're going to get to see him tonight. I thought we would maybe take a special trip or something. So we go into this place, and there's Robert, and they instruct us that if you're going to take a picture of Robert, that you have to ask very politely. You have to say, "Dear Robert, do you mind if I take your picture?" And like, literally, there's a room full of grown people talking to a doll, saying like, "Do I have permission to take your picture?" Because the story is that if you don't and you just take his picture, you get cursed, like you have really bad luck. And so on the wall and in like a running scroll on a TV screen are letters that people have written to Robert asking for his forgiveness and saying sorry. So that's, because he's supposed to be this like cursed haunted doll. So, we were just like, okay, well, I'm going to hedge my bets, and I'm going to, I want to take a picture of him. So I'm going to ask. And my mom's kind of asking, and then she goes over and she starts talking to, the group moves on, and she starts talking to like the docent, who's like the person who works in the gift shop and is there by themselves for hours. And she had some stories of this doll dramatically moving positions. They've come in the morning and it's been in completely different part. It's now encased in glass, but even within there, it will have moved. So, definitely a creepy thing, and I think there's something about it being sort of dressed like a little bit of a child that is freaky. And it's believed that it was haunted all along, and that the first owner, when the first owner left him behind, it just sort of unleashed some kind of entity within him. But that's kind of going along the lines of what we were talking about right before break, of like, are there haunted objects? Like, can objects hold things? When you're playing around with different mediums and Ouija board and things like that, you have to do it with a certain amount of responsibility and respect, because it very well could be a thing. And I think there was a time in my life where I said, there can't be haunted things. And I'd had people bring things to me and telling me that they were haunted, and I would just do like no, this isn't haunted, and just cover it with some kind of, glorious oil and light candles around it, and it would be fine. But as I, found my way in the world and saw more strange things, I began to understand that there are certainly some things that have a certain possession to them. And Robert definitely has a weird thing going on. It's a weird vibe.
What do you think about him leaving his locked enclosure and going to find a little lion stuffed animal to keep himself company? Because I still don't know if he did that or...
I know. Was it a publicity stunt?
Exactly.
Right. I know. I think there's like a little cynical part of me that's just like, really? That's pretty extreme. But this woman that we were talking to, her stories were much more like subtle. And she had been a docent there for years. I think she said something like 10 or 15 years that she'd been volunteering, because it's this beautiful old historic fort also. And Robert, I don't know how long he had been there at that point, 8 years or something like that. And she was describing like lights that would, she'd come in and she'd put the lights on and the lights would go off. And so there's certainly something going on in that fortress. Yeah. So shall we go across the pond?
Let's do it.
So now I have actually a little bit of a personal connection to this, and this is something kind of interesting to me, because the story of Banshees, and this is a ghost story, but the story of Banshees is essentially banshees kind of straddle the world between ghosts and fairies. And one of the things that I had always read was that banshees were believed to belong to a clan. They were believed to belong to a family. And so sometimes when you would have like a haunted castle, there would be like the banshee of the O'Brien, whatever. And this, and I always wondered, well, was it the place that was haunted, or was it these that people, descendants, were able to see it? And so I was in Ireland last year. I had quite a travel year last year, and I stayed in a couple different castles, and one of them was actually, so I later, before I went to Ireland this time, now I'd been interested in Irish history for years. Well, I found out that I actually have a familial line to the O'Briens. And I happened to be in this place where this kind of this restless ghost that's related to the O'Briens. So I didn't see the ghost, but I heard the story, and I'll tell it to you. It's a place called Lemonade Castle, and it is said to be and it's in West Clare, and it's said to actually be haunted by one of the most notorious women in Irish history, Mary McMahon. She is said to have hung one of her maids by her hair from the battlements. So she was thought to be quite fierce and not unlike Elizabeth Bathory, abusive toward the help. People called her Mary Rua because of her flaming red hair, which is a word in Gaelic that means red. And this is like the 1600s. And Mary married someone named Conor O'Brien, lord of this castle. And he spent a great deal of money kind of building this incredible castle. And now the castle is like kind of partly in ruins, so that makes it extra spooky. And in 1651, her husband actually was ambushed and murdered by British soldiers. So she, went straight over and found an English officer to marry her. Now, this story was told to me in a way that there's a lot of layers to it. So one of the layers is that if your husband was killed by the English, why would you go, hang out with the English? But the other flip side of that would be if you didn't marry someone, worse would happen to you. So when I was told this story, I had a little empathy for her. In any case, she married an English officer, and within 3 days of their wedding, he died. And everyone believed she actually pushed him off the tower. And so to this day, there are sightings of this redheaded ghost, often in a white gown, typically known by her red hair, and that she can be actually quite violent, and that she was thought to be violent in life, and so she is violent in death. And that sometimes you'll see like a face will appear. If you do a little internet search of this castle, you might see a couple of sort of grainy images that could definitely look like a woman's face. And that also she's been known to sort of like push people, if they're around the castle, there's sightings of accounts of being sort of like pushed around and shoved around, or feeling like you're being shoved. So I just thought that was kind of cool, because it turned out to be, potentially one of my family members from long ago that was murdered by her. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Well, nothing like a little family murder just to, enlighten things around Halloween. What the hell, right?
It gives you some cred, right? Oh, that was my great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather. So similarly, there's just Ireland's just a wonderful place if you're interested in ghosts, because there's dozens and dozens and dozens of castles, and it's great because you're traveling around and like you'll just see this very. I went to the castle of Grace O'Malley, the Pirate Queen, and you'd think there'd be this. If that was in the United States, there would be like a flashing neon sign, and someone would be out there selling like cheesy pirate trinkets. But there was literally just like a stone on a wall that said castle with an arrow, that someone had written in like white paint. So it's very, they're just everywhere. And pretty much all of them have a legend. In Killuat Castle in County Westmeath, there's a ghost that has a really freaky description. They say it's a misshapen pale ghost with a yellow wig and sly eyes that haunts the grounds and castles. Named as Jack Dalton, estate manager of the castle. And they said that he was a drunk and basically was kind of a bruiser and an abuser toward the tenants, and didn't always pay for his way in his drink. And so actually, in 2012, two visitors were exploring this castle at night when they heard sounds of a rock being struck and a disembodied whispering voice. And one of them felt an invisible hand stroke her neck and back. So that's pretty freaky.
Well, I mean, that could be just a nice, friendly ghost massage, That's
just a little, sharing. So let's see. What's one of the... So kind of thinking back to some of the stories that I've been told that, honestly, a lot of the paranormal experiences I haven't been particularly terrifying, although there was one time in sort of an abandoned sanatorium where I felt a little bit of hair pulling. And I think just the fact that it was like an abandoned medical facility gave it particularly frightening, just kind of made it extra. I think it was on edge already with all that sort of like torturous energy. But one of the places that I actually was recently, so they're doing a thing on Halloween night. It's this place called Loftus Hall, and that's in Ireland. I think it's in like County Wicklow. And that story is great because it's basically this woman went mad and was said to, what happened is she was caught late at night playing cards with the devil. That's what the story says. And shortly thereafter, she thought this man came to her door, and she let him in, and was very, very hospitable and offered him food and drink. And then to pass the time, they began to play cards. And at some point, he stood up, and when he stood up, she saw his cloven feet and realized that she had been playing cards and entertaining with the devil all night. And thereafter descended into madness and is said to haunt that castle to this day. And it's a really interesting place because they haven't fully restored it, but they are currently installing cams, because you can't go there, right? Because of COVID and everything. So there's cams in, I think, 9 of the, there's like 50 rooms or something, including one that's called the Devil's Room. And they had those webcams up for a while, but they had them in different rooms. They took them down, they put them back up. And on Halloween night in Ireland, which is for me 6 hours ahead, they're going to turn everything back on. They're actually basically offering after-hour virtual paranormal tours, and you can look at all these webcams, and they're going to be on 24/7, and you can kind of scan them and watch for various happenings if you can catch something on camera, and then if you do, you can report it. So, and there's also a library. This is very Ghostbusters, where there's a library in Indiana that it's called the Willard Library. Is it in Indiana? Yeah, I think it's in Indiana. It's called the Willard Library, and they are known for the Gray Lady. And I actually reached out to one of the librarians just last week because I had read about the Gray Lady, and I wanted to know if she if there was any credibility to the stories. And actually, on the librarians are so credible. But she told me that she sent actually a photo of the woman that was thought to be who they think is the Gray Lady. And they see her throughout the library. She's frequently in the children's library. Librarians over the years have reported seeing her, feeling her, sitting down in a chair and becoming completely cold, and then getting up and moving and sitting in the next chair over and realizing that she must have been sitting there. So they've just really, and they also have a cam that you can watch and see if you can spot the gray lady wandering the halls of this beautiful old library. So they've fully embraced it, and you can kind of do this virtual like walking tour, or they have a map up of all of, it's like the ghost map, and it has all the spots where the gray lady has been spotted throughout the library and what year and who saw them. And it's just totally reminds me of that scene in Ghostbusters with the librarians, you know, the ghost is in the library and she kind of turns around and tells them to be quiet.
Well, you know what? That's why we love you here, because you bring that to our attention. We have about, just under 4 minutes here to go before we go to break at the top of the hour. Varla Ventura is our guest tonight. You ever get any stories on aliens? I got people asking.
Yeah. I've been told a couple of different, really rather intense stories that are not my stories to tell necessarily, but I'll tell them anyway. But one of them was actually about a friend of mine who was woken up in the night as a little girl, and they lived in Alaska, and they basically, her father was working for some sect of the government and had discovered something that had to do with some research about intelligent life forms on other planets. And she said that, she was admittedly a little girl, and from her perspective, what she remembered as being woken up in the middle of the night and having to run. And they actually had to they threw the two kids in the car, and they had to, there were lights following them, and they had to drive and get out of there. And then eventually they head out somewhere for a while. Then they went back to California, where her mother was from, which is the same little town that I lived in. And we worked at a restaurant together. And she told me this one night, late at night, when we were kind of closing. She told me, she said it was very traumatic for her family, and that her father would talk about it with her when she was older, and believed that he had uncovered something that was, that he wasn't supposed to know, and that if he hadn't gotten his family out of there, he thought their lives were in danger. So I've heard, all manner of stories. I mean, I've seen a couple of UFOs myself. So, but I haven't had a lot of abduction stories, not told to me personally. I've read a lot, and I've listened to a lot of shows of people, sharing those stories. But I personally haven't had that, and I haven't had a lot of, firsthand accounts told to me about that. But certainly a lot of more along the lines of like UFO sightings.
That's unbelievable. Unbelievable, because the freakiness of the alien abduction or coming in contact with aliens, it's of what nightmares are made of.
Right, but then here we are, saying, for how long was, Stephen King's The Stand or something, where, someone's coughing and then this thing spreads, and it's like, okay, well, this global pandemic, we weren't, this seemed like something that was very science fiction-y several years ago. Or, I've got friends in California who are dealing with the wildfires and the air quality, and, people are manufacturing jets and helmets to filter out the air and the coronavirus. And it's like, you know what? 5 years ago, we would have made fun of that. 2 years ago, maybe. Possibly even last year, but here we are going we can't breathe. We need this helmet. So yeah, some of those I'm going
to be honest. When I take my son trick-or-treating on Saturday, I'm going to get a white t-shirt and I'm just going to write 2020 on it. That's the scariest bloody costume out there right now.
That's perfect.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. There's my costume. I just thought about it.
Boom. Nice. And people will love it because everybody's going to agree.
Yeah, well, around here it's cold, so it'll be underneath the jacket. Varla, hold on, because we are through 2 hours. We got Varla Ventura for another 30 minutes here on Spaced Out Radio in hour number 3, followed up by the SOR Newswire and the Thought of the Dave. Varla's website is varlaventura.net. So make sure you check it on out. Get all of her books at any major bookstore or online at places like Amazon. Varla Ventura continues with us. Spooky stories for a spooky Halloween that's approaching very, very quickly. All right, we clear. I'm going to just quickly run my dogs out. I'll be right back, okay?
Okay,
All right, I go now.
To tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Tribe and Tribe Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little different. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Tribe Charities, just go to tribecharities.org/donate.
The SOR Vault is open for business, and we have some cool swag for you to pick up. All you have to do is head over to our website and click on the SOR Vault. You have a variety of cool logos to choose from, and put them on anything you want. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, coffee mugs, you name it, we can get it to you. So do your shopping by supporting the store you love. Get your Spaced Out Radio swag at the SOR Vault today.
Hi there, this is the paranormal lawyer Michael W. Hall. I'd like to invite you to listen in each Sunday night, where we're going to open up your eyes to everything strange and paranormal. I will be hosting some great guests with topics that affect us all, such as UFOs, ghosts, and everything paranormal. Let's learn together on Spaced Out Radio Sunday with myself, Michael W. Hall, the paranormal lawyer at spacedoutradio.com.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/spacedoutradio, and while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
For the price of 1 cup of coffee a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. The Space Travelers Club is a place where you can interact with other listeners, either live during the show or on our great forum. We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be a part of our newsletter. Stay in touch with everything SOR. The Space Travelers Club is just $5 a month at spacedoutradio.com.
Hello, space travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month. And follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight.
I got a couple of oranges.
What do you mean? Oh, you got the snack. You got a snack.
I did.
Good.
I went with the oranges.
Good.
I'm trying to eat healthier.
Keep your blood sugar up.
It didn't help the other day. I had a Dairy Queen burger and poutine for lunch. God, I'm so bad. Here I am bitching at myself.
Yeah.
I know.
Well, at least you're not smoking, right?
Sure. I got a flock of seagulls hair right now.
Oh.
Yeah.
You should take another selfie.
Look at this shit. Hold on. Totally went flock of seagulls on me. And I run so far away. Now I run. Apparently that song's about being chased by aliens.
It is.
Yeah.
I never gave it enough thought.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
That's what I've heard. That's what I've heard. I'm just running with it.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. Oh, Corin's the booking guy.
Mm-hmm.
I know you're listening. Timothy Renner just messaged me. He would like to come on the show in late November for one of our dates that we have open. So I'm not sure if you got his email. If you got his email, email it. If not, I'll hit him up for it. I must sound like a horse right now.
Actually, I couldn't hear it until you did that. This is like the bonus. This is what you get when you listen on YouTube. You get the full.
Yes. Oh, 1 second. Yes.
All the sounds.
Yes, Corin's the booking guy, Timothy Renner, for November. End of November, we have those dates available. Filled out one of them. Final commercial. All right. We got like 15 seconds. Thank you to Mr. DB Cooper for the super chat tonight. And give us a thumbs up. If you're brand new to the show, hit that subscribe button. Let's do this thing. Kickoff hour number 3.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is underway tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight. I really appreciate it. No matter where you are on this great planet we call Earth, we welcome back everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live and Revolution Radio. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Phantasm. Phantasm is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. For the final time tonight, we introduce one of the best authors when it comes to everything cryptid, legendary, and folklorish, Varla Ventura. VarlaVentura.net is her website. You can find all of her books in any major bookstore except one down in Key West, Florida. And, of course, you can also find her on Amazon. Varla, welcome back.
Hey, my mom convinced her. She can strong arm.
Good. This show is flying on by.
I know. It always does, though.
I know. It's terrible.
I always feel more awake at the end of it.
Well, you get to hang out with our YouTube chatters after the show. You can just go.
Yeah.
You could just go in there, and
I can go in there. I'm always afraid to put the YouTube on, during the thing. Well,
Me too.
Because feedback, and then also
I'll teach you how to mute your link. How about that?
Oh, okay. That's a good idea. Because then, I don't know how to do that.
We'll teach you. All right. What else you got spooky for us leading up to All Hallows Eve?
Yeah, I was thinking over the break of over the years, what are some of the more scary stories? And I believe I've shared I've shared, I think, at least once, the story of the thing that moans in the woods, which I can briefly recap for you. But that's a scary story. But the same person who had that experience actually told me a story which he contributed to my very first book, The Book of the Bizarre. And I was just kind of thinking about that. I was like, what? He's told me so many stories over the years. So just to briefly talk about the thing that moans in the woods, in case no one remembers it or I never actually told it, both of which could have happened. Took place in Northern California, in the kind of rural Sierra Nevadas, where we both more or less grew up. And it actually took place on the land that he now owns, that he's had since he was a pretty young man, but it's right next to his grandparents' land. And so in other words, it's an area that he spent most of his life and childhood. And so he's very familiar with the lay of the land, the sounds, the different animals in the night, all of that type of thing, the flora and the fauna. And he's also he's an archaeologist, so he's a very scientific mind by nature. And he's told me quite a few stories over the years, including, as a child, seeing a sort of, he described it as a scribble monster, but essentially like the outline. But later, I think we've realized it was a shadow person that would follow him around, and he described it as being the shadow of a man with a hat, I believe, but the instead of shadow and darkness, it was almost like frenetic and like scribble lines in there. And he saw that when he was a kid, and he ran from it, and he'd actually seen it more than once. And then the one story he told me, it followed him into his room, which is super scary. So anyway, the thing that moans in the woods was basically, he was clearing his land, and one night he heard this just horrifying moan. And at first he thought, at the time there was just this little kind of pump house, like a well house, that he had set like a bed and stuff in, and he was clearing the property because they were going to build a house. And he was there by himself and had been clearing brush, and went to lay down in his little casa there, and he hears this sound, and it sounds like it's kind of traveling up the canyon. And so he has a number of, immediate thoughts. One, is it like a dying animal or a mating animal or something like that? And he kind of knows there's like someone who has llamas over here and donkeys over there. And so, he's somewhat familiar with what the animals were and the sounds. But he said it had this net. It was almost as if somebody was like pressing down all of these keys on like a synthetic keyboard. And he thought someone was, because could it be a friend that's pranking him? And so the sound sort of like carries up the canyon, and it comes pretty, it's kind of coming toward him, and he's feeling a little weird about the whole thing. And then it stops, and he said that actually really freaked him out, because the sound stopped, and the sound stopped. There was no echo, there was no reverb, it was completely truncated. Then it started again, and this time it was closer and coming closer and closer toward the cabin, and he could hear it, and it was just a sound he could not figure out what it was. And at that point, he, was kind of like stepping back into the casa. It was like, maybe I'm not going to go out there and try and find out what it was. Stops again, sound completely truncated, no reverb, no echo. Third time, it's coming like basically right at the cabin. He's inside. The door is now closed. And he said that it actually rattled the little bottles and things that he had on the windowsill. That's how close it was. Almost like there was like a little earthquake going on. And the sound truncated. And, that was sort of the end of it for that night. The next day, he saw his neighbor and was kind of talking to the neighbor kid. And the neighbor was like, yeah, my dad heard something. And so, day after that, he goes down and he talks to the dad, and the dad described hearing something quite similar, but his sound, when it stopped, he heard a splash in the pond. So to this day, we do not know what it is. We haven't heard it again, but we're, doing our research if anybody's had an experience like that. But he told me this other story that was, I realized it's in the first book, so it was years and years ago he told me this story, but it was about this haunted boathouse in Point Reyes. And he was there on an archaeological survey, and so it was like him and I think 5 other scientists were there, and they'd been hired by the park to basically like survey this site that was nearby, kind of up on the bluff. And at night, the accommodations was this like old boathouse that was in the state park. And so it was, I think, 4 men and there was 1 woman. And so she kind of had like her own, the room to herself. And she, I guess, she heard all kinds of things all night, doors, opening and closing, slamming, the cupboards in the kitchen opening and closing, just all kinds of strange noises all night long. And then the ranger came and told them this story that there was a boat that was a Coast Guard station. And so there was a boat that was built and was, let me see, did it crash first or? Okay. So the boathouse overlooks Drake's Bay, which if you're at all familiar with the Northern California coast, from basically San Francisco all the way up to, British Columbia, it can be pretty treacherous. There's a lot of riptides. The water's very cold. And especially right around that Point Reyes area, there's sort of like a little inland bay that just, it's like a little bit of a vortex. So on a stormy Thanksgiving Eve in 1960, the Coast Guard team at Drake's Bay was alerted to a cry for help from a fishing boat that appeared to be in distress north of Fort Bragg. Now, that's quite a haul. So the well-trained crew, very competent, they hopped on board the ship and they, sailed off, the 2-person crew, they sailed off to try and help the ship in Fort Bragg through blinding rain and turbulent seas. Eventually, they were able to reach the boat in Fort Bragg and successfully towed it back to shore. However, they never made it back to the boathouse. The next morning, the boat was found empty, just 150 yards from the berth at the boathouse. So they had made it all the way up to Fort Bragg, rescued this ship, come all the way back down into the bay, but they were nowhere to be seen. And, of course, they were searched for, but you've got the ocean, so no one ever recovered their bodies. So the boathouse, not long after that, was decommissioned, and this boat was stored in there. So, fast forward 40 years, and my friend's staying there, and he and his colleagues are staying the night. And the boat was actually, the lifeboat that they had taken out was restored, and they were going to relaunch it, and actually crashed down from its, it was kind of up on a platform, and it crashed down and completely damaged one of the props, the sawhorses that was holding it up, damaged the boat. And basically they just made it that it would, they just decided it will never again touch water again. It will never be in Drake's Bay again. And so this is what he wrote to me. For 4 nights in late October, after long days of archaeological work, our 5-person crew returned to the boathouse for a night's sleep. Yet these nights were anything but restful. Each member of our crew reported strange happenings and unexplained sounds. Mysterious footsteps creaked down the corridor outside the captain's room when all members of our team were accounted for. Things slammed to the floor in the boat room, things that had been fastened tightly to the wall the night before. One of our crew members repeatedly said that there was somebody looking through the shelves in the kitchen where she saw shadows. This sight was enough to scare her from her luxurious room downstairs to the bunks upstairs where the rest of us lodged. A lunar eclipse, the shortened days and long nights of late October, a brewing storm, a boathouse that rests 3/4 of the way over the murky waters of the bay. Even a team of rational scientists could not help but feel there was something decidedly haunted about the boathouse.
Yeah. See, that's another reason why not to go on boats. Shipwrecks, people just disappear, vanish. Never mind what's lurking below the water's surface.
The Kraken?
I'm thinking Megalodon.
Squid. Or just the Humboldt squid. That's pretty terrifying.
That's
They're
another one, too.
They will pull you down.
I just don't want to know. I really don't want to know. Oh, you have no idea my fear. Like, look, I can't stand sharks, okay? I can't. They just scare the daylights out of me. You know, but I'm not one of these guys who, like, I want to protect them. I'm opposite because I don't have to go in the ocean. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to go in the ocean. Right? And I want them to have, like, as much ocean as possible. Right?
Let me do my part to get out of your way.
Oh, yeah. I have no problem. Sharks can stay in the water. I can stay on land. It's that easy.
But then you have snakes on land, which you also...
Not where I live. Not where I live. Although I did scream like a banshee about a month ago. I was out getting firewood. And my buddy Mike and I, Mike's a big, tough guy. I used to be a bouncer back in the day. Pretty strong dude.
You could take a snake.
I nearly step on this little 2.5, 3 foot garter snake. And I screamed. Right? Mike's like, what's going on? I said, there's a snake over there. He goes, I ain't taking that way. No way. I said, dude, we have no choice. We got to burn down the forest. We have to. Right?
Wow.
It's like, Science Bob McGuire invites me down to Alabama. He's got a new house. He's like, when this COVID stuff is over, you got to come down for a visit. I said, sure. And then he posts a picture of a snake in his pool. And I said, Bob, why haven't you dropped dynamite in that pool yet? It's over. It's over.
Yeah, you would not want to go down to Florida.
Nope.
There's too many things lurking in there.
Nope. Although I do want to fish in Florida. I want to go fishing in Florida.
Well, just wear boots, Don't wear flip flops. You'll be okay.
No way. Oh, I'm going to cast a little bit further out there because if one of them alligators comes up the bank trying to chase my fish up,
Oh, and they can move fast.
Oh, yeah.
Too.
Yeah, I can't. Father Time is getting a hold of me here.
Same.
I know.
So when we ever meet in Nevada,
yes,
we also, I think, should explore Virginia City because it's a several hour. It's actually closer to Reno than
long
Vegas,
drive.
But it's pretty fantastic. I actually was invited there this Halloween, but I'm not in a position to be able to travel right now, especially with a little one in the house. So I'm not taking that risk, but man, was it, I've been invited on a few things, but nothing was quite as tempting as this Halloween ghost exploration in Virginia City, which is kind of one of the, it's not a gold mining town. It was a silver mining town because they had a silver vein up there, I believe. But so there's, the Silver Queen Hotel is supposed to be really haunted. There's several highly, a lot of sightings and experiences at, I think there's 3 different hotels where people report things like, the smell of perfume in the hall and things like that. The Silver Queen, it's actually, this is the place to stay because it says it's a quirky hotel with frequent guests and lots of haunted activity, including hearing the sound of a banjo playing loud in the other room, but then the room is empty. So what it is people will hear in the next room, like someone's partying or they're playing music really loud, or a couple's arguing, and they'll call down to the desk to complain, and they're like, there's no one in that room. So one of those kind of just classic haunted hotels that it's well worth a visit.
I have actually been to Virginia City. I have.
Oh, you have? Yeah.
But last time I was there, I was like, I think I was like 16 years old.
So you didn't have the love for it that you might have.
No, I would look at it completely
as a 29-year-old.
Yeah, I would look at it completely different now. Completely different.
Yeah. Well, I think because I grew up in the Sierras, like I think we never went to Virginia City because it was just like, whatever, we live in a town that looks like that. How boring, right? We want to go to San Francisco and, go to the city. But now I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm looking at property. It's like, oh, what would it be like to like live in this weird town? Could be really interesting.
Come to my town. Lots of weirdos here.
All right. Well, get them borders open.
Well, I mean, your son, no offense to you or your son is already a weirdo. He's a goaltender in hockey.
That's right.
So he'll just fit.
Right. He made like one of the top levels too. So
good for him.
Serious. Yeah.
Good for him. Yeah. I almost got kicked out of the hockey rink.
Did you?
I did. I almost got banned from the hockey rink because I questioned their COVID exit procedures from the rink.
Oh.
Yeah. So there was just me and the guy and the door guard hanging out, and I had a phone call from Science Bob that I had to take, and this was the first hockey night, and for my boy. So all the kids are on the ice, all the parents are up in the stands, and I need to take a call. And apparently he was flexing his authority, shall we say, because I wanted to go outside the wrong door when there was nobody there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Did they let you back in?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did. He almost went like the Scottish janitor on The Simpsons.
Groundskeeper Willie.
Thank you. Yeah, he almost went Groundskeeper Willie on me, but he went and complained to the minor hockey executive that was there that I was thinking, and you shouldn't think, just do.
You should just do. They've started here, but there's definitely some very specific. I mean, I think the protocols are very reasonable, really.
True.
Basically get ready before you get there. Of course, with goalies, you can't really do that. You gotta do some of the stuff in there because you gotta put the pads on and stuff. But we've gotten the hang of it at this point, and but yeah, we just got to notice that people were not complying, and if people didn't comply, they were going to get kicked out. And I'm like, oh, I think I know who that was.
Oh yes, it's
No, it wasn't me. It totally
sure.
was not me.
Sure.
I mean, maybe a little by accident. I could have non-complied without realizing it, but they were talking about some hockey dads that were vocal and not wearing masks.
Oh, I get you.
Yeah.
I get you.
No yelling without a mask. You can yell. I mean, how can you go to a hockey game and not yell, right?
Oh, it's easy. It's easy. What they need to do is if you want to cure the parent yelling problem at a hockey rink, just bring duct tape. That's it. That's all you got to do. Shuts them right up. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. You want to talk about a nightmarish Halloween costume? Be a hockey parent.
Yeah.
Hockey parents are crazy. They really are.
It's just so many scheduling things. I mean, right now because there's not a lot of conflict, right? Because we're all here. But yeah.
Well, the scary part is you did allow your son to be a goaltender. That's the scary part.
How old's your son? 9?
7.
7. Okay. Because we're now in that next stage where there's multiple practices in a week, and anyway.
Yeah. I said to my dad the other day, because my son isn't the strongest skater yet, and I said to my dad the other day, I said, Dad, I have a fear. I said I had a nightmare. He goes, what? I said I had a dream that my boy wanted to become a goaltender. He's like, well, if he wants to be a goaltender, you let him be a goaltender as long as he's playing the game. I said, Dad, do you not remember your coaching years of every goaltender that you had? They're weird. They're strange. They like having pucks shot at them at like 100 miles an hour. He goes, oh, you got to get over that, son. I said,
yeah, I agree with your dad.
I said, Dad, who are you? Who are you? Varla, do me a favor, my beautiful friend. Tell everybody where they can find your books and your information. We got 20 seconds.
You can find it at varlaventura.net.
Yes.
Yep, you find that there. And I have a shop, too. I don't know if I mentioned that, but you can get some Varla swag, including, I think I just pushed a hoodie there. I just designed a hoodie with my Varla Ventura logo on there. And then you can get, the beautiful book covers on mugs and journals and baby changeling onesies.
Nice.
Because, morbid sense of humor. So that's all right on my website. And yeah.
Well, we love you, my dear. And the good news for us is you'll be back next month as well.
Yeah,
just a few weeks before we get to see you again. Varla Ventura, everyone. Coming up next, we have the SOR News Wire and the Thought of the Day. Stay tuned. Spaced Out Radio continues after this. God damn, I hate snakes.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with them.
I never liked snakes, and then when I was
How do you feel about spiders?
Oh, I don't mind spiders. Spiders. I mean, when they get big, like tarantula size, that's just getting ridiculous. Okay, getting ridiculous. But snakes, I did this story when I was in broadcasting school, and I was on the television side for that semester. And we had to go film a story. So I decided to do this reptile refuge. Well, they got this 15-foot albino python. And the lady's like, oh, this one's a darling. Let's go into the cage. Okay, because, I'm trying to get the story, be the brave journalist there, look for the good camera angles. And this thing starts hissing at us. And it starts hissing louder and louder and louder. And thank God it didn't move. But the way it was hissing, it hissed 3 times, and I just looked at her and said, I'm out. She goes, oh, don't worry about that. I said, lady, I'm a meal here, okay? I'm a meal. All right? This thing wouldn't have to eat for a year after having, one of my ham hocks.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the way I roll.
Yeah. Not quite as I'm not bothered by many of those things. I'm not. The only thing I don't really like are lobsters.
How do you not like lobster? They're great.
They're gross
when they're on my plate.
They're gross with their antennae. Although I did see some really beautiful lobsters down in Florida that were just these rainbow of colors, and they were pretty glorious. But by and large, I don't know. They just give me the creeps.
It's weird looking. Have you ever seen a porcupine?
Yeah.
They are strange looking. I'd never seen a porcupine before. And a couple of years ago, I'm driving down the road, going around this big bend, and I see this black thing run across the road. I'm like, holy, what the hell is that? Like a small bear cub or something? No. It was Mr. Porcupine waddling away.
That's all it's like.
I'm just
weird I can't remember what kind it is, but there was this porcupine at the San Francisco Zoo that we used to go and see all the time. And it had I can't remember what kind. So there's the North American porcupine, which is what you and I have seen in the wild. And then there was this other kind of porcupine that had kind of like a pig nose, not a pig's nose, but that sort of flattened nose. And right. I can't remember what it was called, but it was just the cutest little, it's actually really cute. But very weird looking, definitely kind of unexpected.
Right. I know. It's, I don't know. Not just, I'm not going into the ocean, man.
So what are you doing for Halloween? You're going to put this,
I'm going to go buy like $300 worth of fireworks, and I'm going to blow up my backyard. I'm going to have a big bonfire and cook marshmallows and roast hot dogs with cheese in them. That's what I'm going to do.
That sounds like really similar to what I'm going to do. And I totally have fireworks left over from 4th of July.
Yeah.
That's a good idea about the fireworks.
Yeah, I'm going to go a little stir crazy here and,
Yeah, it's funny because I live on kind of like this corner, and this time of year, because the leaves are all falling off, I can kind of like, I'm next to a park, and so there's a guy on the other side of the park, and he has a bonfire in his backyard, and I have a bonfire in my front yard, and I don't think he's aware of this, but to me, it's become a bit of a competition to whose bonfire is bigger. It's like, wait, that guy thinks he's got a big bonfire, and I'll go and put a bunch of kindling, and I may or may not occasionally squirt a little lighter fluid on there for effect. Anyway, bonfire season. I love it.
Yes.
Yeah, that sounds very similar to my
I
plan.
got a bunch of wood I need to burn too. So
Yeah,
I'm going to be an absolute burnaholic. And
Rage
I got
against
an
the-
entire fence that I have to burn.
Oh,
Yeah. Anyways, my beautiful friend, I got to get the news going here in about 40
Yeah, you
seconds.
do.
Much
Thank you so
love,
much.
and thank you
Okay.
for being an awesome friend. We love you, and we'll talk to you in a couple weeks, okay?
sounds great. All right. Happy
right.
Halloween.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye.
Varla Ventura, everyone. The Varla Ventura. Gosh, we love her. We love her. Let's give her a few claps. Varla Ventura. Love her. All right. We're pretty close to the news here. Like 10 seconds. Want to hear?
Learn together on Spaced Out Radio Sunday with myself, Michael W. Hall, the paranormal lawyer at spacedoutradio.com.
We rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. I'm Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight. I want to remind you that if you've missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Speaking of the news, let's do this thing, shall we? The news is always changing, which is why we bring you the SOR Newswire at the back end of every show, where we get to the weird, the strange, the wacky, and sometimes the downright haunted or want to be haunted. In Picton, Ontario, the Regent Theatre in Prince Edward County is a little bit upset these days. Why? They don't have a ghost, and they want a ghost of their own. The Regent Theatre sits on Picton Main Street in downtown Picton, Ontario, and usually hosts everything from concerts and plays to movies, and it also serves as a community space. It can usually host 300 events a year, but because of the pandemic, it's been closed since March. So to help raise money, they came up with a contest. If you buy a $25 ticket, you'll be able to put in a draw on Halloween to gain rights to become the official ghost of the Regent Theatre after you pass on. Chair Ben Thornton. What a fundraiser this is. How cool is this? Chair Ben Thornton of the Regent Theatre Foundation Board said he believes every self-respecting theater should have its own ghost. All the grand old theaters in the world in London and New York and Toronto, they all have ghost stories attached to them, Thornton says. Phantoms haunt the stages and the dressing rooms and scare the audience, so we thought, well, why don't we have one here? Thornton said the theater is looking for someone who is a big supporter of the arts, but it wouldn't be a bad idea to have someone a bit theatrical, he explains. Someone to practice their moans and groans We don't want to scare the pants off of anybody, but a little bump makes people jump in the theater when it's dark. Hey, why not? The fundraiser is part of a larger initiative to raise money for the aging theater called the Raise the Curtain campaign. General Manager Alexandra Say says upgrades like fixing their leaky roof and modernizing accessibility services in the building comes with a $250,000 price tag. We need that to reopen in order to make this space safe, she says, so that our audiences, our performers, and our staff can all be safe. Fittingly, the draw will take place Halloween night. The winner will be left to create their own ghost story one day. When you shuffle off this mortal coil, come and join us and watch over the place, says Thornton. You can buy tickets or just donate by going to their website. Let's check this out. I wish they had a GoFundMe because we could totally check this out. But this is cool. All right, we're going to have to see about getting them on. I want to see who does this. This is very interesting. Very interesting. Good story, Shirky Poo. A Tennessee man missing since 2012 is confirmed dead now after police say they discovered his skull sitting on a fireplace mantel wearing sunglasses. How morbid is this? The Morgan County Sheriff's Office did not reveal how it learned about the skull, why it was being held as a keepsake, or who affixed it with the eyewear. But on social media, District Attorney General Russell Johnson says tests performed on the human cranium using DNA from family members of 79-year-old Junior Willie McCann, who disappeared in September 2012, proved it was his. Speculation and rumor has been that Junior Willie McCann was possibly killed by a family member who is now deceased as well. A call to the sheriff's office was not returned by media, or to the media. Johnson said the skull allegedly had been discovered in March 2019 in the county and later placed on the fireplace mantel by an unnamed someone, where it remained until the sheriff's office was informed of its existence. The sheriff's office subsequently retrieved the skull and sent it for testing by the Knox County Regional Forensics Center at the University of Texas Department of Anthropology, which then determined it was a link in the unsolved investigation into McCann's disappearance. McCann, who lived in the Gobi area of Morgan County, where the skull was allegedly found, has not been seen since 2012. Authorities conducted what Johnson described as an extensive search of the area where the skull was picked up, according to the man who supposedly found it, but they did not reveal any additional discoveries. How weird is that? How weird is that? This is a gross one here. This just came down during the show, so I'm throwing it in there. Shirky Poo doesn't like it when I do this, but I'm going to because it's kind of our kind of story. An illegal immigrant in a red devil mask butchered his girlfriend and her sister. Oh, this guy's got some anger problems. Wrapping their innards of one of his victims around his neck like a necklace. Oh, 23-year-old Oscar Urias, he definitely needs some psychological help. He's accused of killing 31-year-old girlfriend Elizabeth Tornabine and her 15-year-old sister in a vicious onslaught that sheriff officials said started Sunday at a home in LaPlace when an argument broke out between the two. After the pair went into a bedroom, Tornabine came out moments later and was followed by the mask-wearing Urias, who began stabbing the woman with a pair of knives. Oh, this is horrible. Just wretched. When they tried to intervene, Urias turned his rage on his own siblings, 15-year-old brother and 17-year-old sister, who were visiting Urias from Baton Rouge. His little brother and sister tried to stop him, and he turned on them and stabbed them both. Urias then chased his brother and Tornabine's sister from the home, ultimately catching up to her inside a garage down the street where he fatally stabbed her after a homeowner desperately tried to keep him outside as he tried to bust in. I knew I couldn't let him in here, the homeowner said, adding that he saw a machete in his hand and heard the teen's final moments. I know what he was doing, the 63-year-old said. The last thing I heard was, "You're going to kill me." The homeowner spotted Urias leaving his garage with parts of the girl's innards around his neck, while other remains later recovered from his driveway. This dude is a psychopath. I looked him in the eyes. He looked like the devil. Urias, an El Salvador native who was in the U.S. illegally, is facing 2 counts of first-degree murder and 2 counts of attempted first-degree murder. He has confessed to the slayings. Tornabene started caring for her 15-year-old sister Hattie full-time last year. Uriah's sister was in critical condition, as was the brother. Well, he was treated and released, and he's going to be okay. Horrible, horrible and disgusting. Oh, this is just a horrible story here, too. A Philippines police officer was killed in the line of duty. How? He got killed by a rooster during a raid on an illegal cockfight. Lieutenant Christina Bullock was struck by the rooster's gaff, a razor-sharp steel blade, which is typically attached to the leg of the fighting roosters. The blade cut his left thigh, slicing his femoral artery. He was rushed to hospital and declared dead on arrival. Cockfighting has been banned in the country during the virus outbreak. Should be banned in total. But before the pandemic, it was only allowed in licensed cockpits. Cockpits. On Sundays and legal holidays, as well as during local fiestas lasting a maximum of 3 days, according to the government newswire. Provincial Police Chief Colonel Arnel Apud says that the accident was unfortunate, calling it a piece of bad luck that cannot be explained. I could not believe it when it was first reported to me. This is the first time in my 25 years as a police officer that I lost a man due to a cockfighting experience. Yes, the police chief also sent his deepest sympathy to the victim's family. 3 people were arrested and 7 fighting roosters, 2 sets of gaff, and 550 Philippine pesos were confiscated. The 3 other suspects remain at large. Cockfighting is very popular in the Philippines, typically attracting large crowds who bet on the outcome of the fights between the birds. Oh, it's just horrific. Absolutely horrific. Moving on to something a little bit more pleasant here. A team of NASA scientists has spotted strange flashes of light known as transient luminous events in the upper atmosphere of Jupiter. Hey, Jupiter's got aliens. Let's just call it what it is. Jupiter's got aliens. Events like these have never been observed on another world until now, though here on Earth, scientists have observed similar flashes of light that occur far above lightning storms here on Earth, triggered by discharges of electricity in the upper atmosphere. So Earth has aliens too, so we have something in common with Jupiter now. For a while, astronomers have theorized their existence in Jupiter's massive turbulent atmosphere thanks to new data collected by the ultraviolet spectrograph instruments attached to NASA's Juno spacecraft, a small space probe that's been orbiting the gas giant since 2016. The team was finally able to confirm their presence as detailed, in their latest publication of Journal of Geophysical Research, Planets. UVS was designed to characterize Jupiter's beautiful northern and southern lights, Rohini Giles says, but we discovered UVS images that not only showed Jovian aurora, but also a bright flash of UV light over in the corner, which wasn't supposed to be there. That's because it was an alien spacecraft leaving the planet, or returning, one of the two. Yeah, the more our team looked into it, the more we realized Juno may have detected a TLE on Jupiter. How about a UFO? Let's go down that road. It's not that scary. Let's just check it out. Let's just come on, just tease us a little. On a different world, these rare events would look quite different, but on Jupiter, the upper atmosphere mostly consists of hydrogen, so they would likely appear to be blue or pink. Now that we know what we're looking for, it will be easier to find them at Jupiter and on other planets, Giles said. And comparing sprites and elves from Jupiter with those here on Earth will help us better understand electrical activity in planetary atmospheres. How about you just got aliens? Can we not just admit it? I mean, we're all friends here. I mean, if you got a little bit of aliens, you just share it. Our solar system has aliens, so we're going to share it. All right. Kansas City, Missouri police say a would-be robber is now in custody after he decided to pick the wrong guy to victimize a judo champion. 36-year-old Josh Henges was in the Midtown area Monday night when someone came up to him from behind, grabbed his shoulder, and tried to rob him. Henges, who's traveled around the world competing in judo events and training in others, well, you see, he's a former member of the national judo team of the United States. Yeah, he doesn't like that when robbers try and, say, hey, give me all your money. Henges turned to see a gun pointed directly at him. Scary, but not for Henges. He took the suspect to the ground, pinned him, called police. Henge said he forgives the 20-year-old suspect, and he's glad he didn't permanently injure him. The suspect faces 1 count of attempted robbery. The gun turned out to be a BB gun. Well, that's good. Let's go back to science for a second. You know, who doesn't want a little dragon's blood coursing through their veins? I think we all think it would make us a little bit stronger. Well, in Washington, D.C., researchers have devised an unlikely antidote to antibiotic-resistant bacteria, drugs made from Komodo dragon blood. The Indonesian reptiles are very successful at surviving the nasty bacteria-filled conditions they live in, said Monique Van Hoek, the assistant director at George Mason University's School of Systems Biology. Yeah, she spearheaded the blood study. In the research published in the Journal of Medical Microbiology, scientists synthesized a new antibiotic called DRGN, dragon, number 6, by combining 2 genes found in the blood of the endangered lizard, which is the world's largest and up to 10 feet long. Komodo dragon blood might sound like a witch's brew ingredient. However, in preclinical trials, DRGN6 killed the drug-resistant bacteria, Klebsiella pneumoniae. Probably didn't get that right, but close enough. Behind an aggressive type of pneumonia. Not only that, but a 2017 study by the same team demonstrated that another molecule found in dragon's blood even facilitated the healing of cuts ridden with staph infection in mice. Researchers attribute the blood's antimicrobial properties to the fact that the species evolved differently from humans. Their immunity is likely different and protects against different bacteria, Van Hoek said. The Komodo dragon's mouth reportedly harbors more than 80 strains of bacteria, some of which cause blood poisoning in bitten humans and animals. In fact, the predator was previously thought to incapacitate prey with its bacteria-ridden bite before researchers discovered that it was actually possessed actual venom glands. Oh, yeah. Yeah. You know, the sad part about this is, if this happens to be a miracle cure for things like pneumonia and stuff, this animal is already endangered. You know the poachers are just waiting. They're just waiting. Dirty bastards. A pair of animal control officers in New Jersey had to come rescue a deer that was spotted on an early trick-or-treat. Except there was no candy in the bucket. The deer's head was in the pumpkin bucket. Montclair Town Animal Control said 2 officers responded after multiple calls came in about a deer with its head stuck inside a decorative pumpkin that was plastic. A video shared on the township's animal shelter Facebook page shows the pumpkin being removed from the head of the deer, and the animal was captured in a large net. The pumpkin was safely removed, but the deer was then able to tear its way out of the net. We'll need another net, but at least the deer is free, one of the officers said. Well, that's good. That's good. And finally tonight, a Texas high school shared security camera footage of teachers and an animal control officer chasing a loose raccoon through the halls. I mean, the raccoon just wanted a little bit of education, but not in this school, apparently. They are anti-raccoonite. And Trinity High School principal Mike Harris shared the security camera footage of the scene that unfolded at Euless School when a raccoon made its way into the building. Apparently, it was heading for the math class, wanted to catch up on some algebra, but they weren't having anything of it. The school security guard just said, "No, you're not allowed here. You're a raccoon." The video shows a group of 7 teachers and an animal control officer chasing the raccoon through an empty hallways of the school for several moments. The raccoon eventually darts out of the building through the open door, gives the middle finger to the teachers and said, "Screw you guys. I'm not going to learn here anyways." The incident comes on the heels of 2 raccoons that made headlines earlier this month when a security camera at Chase Bank branch in Redwood City recorded the masked intruders wandering around inside the closed facility. You know, raccoons are kind of cool. They really are. We can learn a lot from them, especially if we want to learn how to break and enter. Thought of the Dave happens every night at this time, where we ask a question on our Facebook and Twitter pages and read your responses down on the air, because we love the audience participation around here. Today's Thought of the Dave is as follows. What do you think cryptids do? Oh, that's the wrong one. Let's go to this one. What's your dream location to ghost hunt and why? Well, you tell me. I do have to say this. Princess Denali in our YouTube chat room is freaking out right now. Because the raccoons that was running around that high school just wanting an education, but wasn't allowed one, turned away. That's her alma mater. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that, Princess Denali. All right, what's your dream location to ghost hunt? Haunted History BC. Queen Mary, loved the book, and the ship seems amazing, populated by a variety of spirits who seem to want to be heard and seen. One downfall is not sure one would get much sleep with so many ghostly activities. Marty, one of our favorite veterans who listens to this show, and we love our veterans around here. Underneath the city of Las Vegas is a vast underground canal system where a lot of homeless people live and have also died. I would love to ghost hunt there because I'd like to document their stories, which I find fascinating. Great clown, by the way, Marty. Chip wants to investigate inside a caboose. Quinoa says Stardust Ranch. And he also wants to come over to SOR HQ, wants to meet Carl. And he goes, I also want to go to the field you and Samantha Mowat had your encounter. Well, that's like 5 hours away from me. But you can come on over. What the hell? Let's just do it. Let's have a party. Bring beer. The Edinburgh Underground Vaults for Magnolia. Poltergeist activity aplenty. Many come out with scratches and scrapes. Imagine a whole night in there. John, the Tower of London. I want to meet the Royal Ghosts. Taka, Chantieri. Boleskine House. Why? All the weirdness associated with Aleister Crowley and the area. In fact, they are rebuilding the house, and it might be a good interview opportunity. Thank you. We'll think about that. Richard, any place that is actively haunted because that's where the action is. Joshua wants to go to the Demon House. Tom, a castle in Europe. Alex Mistretta, former guest. Oya Bakchu, because it's like a center of endemism for hauntings, concentrated in one area, which greatly improves the chances of learning something. I want to go to Chernobyl because it has such an unusual environment and is visually spectacular. And Canuck Chase because of all the different paranormal modalities observed in one place. Plus, the Monkey Man. Joe, he's got aliens. Edinburgh Castle in Scotland. There has to be a few ghosts there. Plus, it would be cool to have free run of the place. 1,000 years of murder and war. P.S. Probably a few good pubs around the area, too. Davy, the site of the Battle of Edge Hill. The battle took place on the same day as my daughter Rudy's birthday. Each year on that date, the ghosts do battle again. My daughter's desperate to see it. John, I want to go to Gettysburg. Stephen wants to go underwater and go visit the Titanic. That'd be actually kind of cool. Little Richie G, he wants Gettysburg. Gail, oh, for Pete's sake, you know I'm not going anywhere things without skin hangout. Maggie, the abandoned insane asylum in Kamloops, BC. There's definitely going to be some insane activity there. Lee, Major Lee, I want to go to Mars, see if those ancient sites have any echoes of life. And finally tonight, we will go with Barry, Casa Loma in Toronto. It's a pretty cool place. I visited when I was in my teens, but I'd love to go to Norfolk, England as well. Also, the hotel in Banff, Alberta would be fantastic. Thank you to everybody on the Thought of the Day. Thank you to Captain Shirk and to Varla Ventura for being our guest tonight. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, in your cars, at work, wherever you may be. Thank you to everybody participating in our chat rooms tonight on Spreaker, YouTube, LGAB, Revolution Radio, Facebook, the Space Travelers Club at our website, and of course all the snarkers and snarkettes who are snarking it out at hashtag Spaced Out Radio on Twitter. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, say it with me, we're watching. We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night. But tomorrow, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we got room for them too. Good night.